Hey y'all, it's me again, Joey.
Well, ready to let them loose?
Yep, that's it. Let's see if they make us run.
Oh,
Probably so.
yeah, that one tried to get after him, but other than that, what can you expect? I mean, can you blame him? Oh yeah, they're getting after us now. Go, Joey, go!
Hey man!
Hey, man, buddy. I'm gonna get in the truck. You gotta go back and get your camera.
But also, just get as many as you can off the one next to it. Out.
You gotta move away.
Do that side again. Y'all ready? Let's get started. Hey y'all, it's me again, Joey. Another pretty day in Louisiana today. 66 degrees right now, and it's been probably in the 80s. It's been a beautiful day. Hope everybody over in the chat's doing good. How about you, Mr. JW? How you doing?
No, as usual, almost perfect.
You been beekeeping or?
I have been actually trying to, so cleaning up stuff and getting some supers ready and cleaning up some. I'm going to switch from my candy boards to my feeder shims and probably try to use up a little more fondant that I made this winter. I don't want to try to store it all summer, so we'll see what happens. So just done that and trying to maintain. Been planting pollinators. Trying to get some of them started. I planted a lot of those around my bee house and buildings for the bees to aggravate me on this summer.
Yeah. I see several more come in since I said howdy to everybody. I see Todd come in since I spoke in the chat. Russell, Keith Spielman, along several more. How you doing, Tom?
Yes, sir. I'm doing well. I'm not as good as JW. I'm not almost perfect, but I'm blessed. How about that? I don't have a complaint.
Well, that's me. I don't have a complaint.
Yeah.
Hey, it wouldn't do any good if we did complain anyway, right?
That's it.
Just be humble, and that's that.
Some people tend to listen to you till you start complaining, and then it's like it just
they really don't care. They're just asking you to be nice.
Yeah.
People like they really don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just described me. When people start complaining, I kind of stop listening because everybody's got problems, right?
Mm-hmm. I know one guy, he used to ask me how I was doing just where he could tell me how he was doing.
Yeah.
He was fishing.
Yeah. Whatever I had, he had too, and worse, you know.
Yeah.
I have been battling the cold. I've got, I don't know, last several years seemed like, I mean, anytime I've ever got a cold, it took a while to get it, and it takes about 2 weeks to get rid of it, and then a few more days to get over it. But when I get one now, it just takes forever to get rid of it. So I don't even complain about it much.
Yeah, if I ever get a headache or something like that, Melissa's like, "Do you take some medicine?" I'm like, "I don't need any medicine." I'm like, "I'm fine." Or she used to be like, "Well, you should go to the doctor." I'm like, "Why?" So I can spend $100 for him to tell me something I already know that he can't do nothing about. I'm like, if I need to go, it'll be pretty severe, and then I'll go ahead and go reluctantly.
Yeah.
You know.
But you know, I back to bees. I've been in several hives the last few days, and I hadn't seen anything that's not doing at least par for this time of year. Even some that I knew were small just seem like they're just picking up, and we're not getting a lot of nectar. They're getting something, but I don't know what it is. We really start really picking up good when our what is it, red maple starts blooming. But I talked to an uncle yesterday that lives right by me. He's got maples around his yard, and he said they're budding now. They're just getting ready to open, and he's not 300 or 400 yards from me through the woods. So, but anyway,
I guess that means your bees are getting ready to feast as well.
yeah, I actually am wanting to split already because there's so much. I don't know. It seems like this happened to me at work, and it's always happening to me now. I can put my X on a date on a calendar, and it's like a big magnet. It just draws everything to that time. I used to try to make schedules at work, and I would get calls from the bosses. We need to meet here on this day. I said, well, I got this company coming in. I get your assistant to handle that part. All right. But anyway.
Nobody will ever do it the same way you will do it, though, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's tough. So I have a question for y'all. If somebody was going to plant white Dutch clover this time of year in Missouri, is it realistic to say that that plant will reach a point to where it'll bloom by the dearth period, or is it very unlikely?
It'll bloom.
It'll bloom?
But you're already too late. Dark the moon in February, any old time clover guy, I tell you, dark the moon in February is when you plant your legumes.
Okay, I gotcha.
Dark of the moon in February.
Yeah.
So do you think that the take will not be good, or it'll be too late? What's your thoughts?
It won't make that much difference, probably.
No.
It'll make some bloom if you're got some place to throw some out. You wanna roll it in if you can. I use a corrugated roller. You understand what I'm saying? Like a corrugate, and that works the best to get seed started. You don't want it real deep in the ground. You kind of work up the soil if you can do that, and then I just broadcast it with that bagpipe you was talking about him a while back.
The planter, the planter.
Yeah.
I asked that because one of my a landowner that we keep colonies on, we started last year mid-season. It's where I had most of my nukes, and I had 8 singles and 13 nukes, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. That was a failure for me, operator error. But he actually asked me last year, he goes, hey, I want to plant something to help the bees. What do you think? And he has an area where he doesn't mow it regularly. It's more irregular, and he's got some Johnson grass and stuff in there. And he said, what do you think? And I'm like, clover. I'm like, it's a great plant, like it'll add nitrogen back. And I thought that it actually would, if you got it in early enough, I thought that you could probably see somewhat of a bloom off of it because it would generally take quickly. And that's why I was asking you specifically that question, what your thoughts were. And so he actually just this last week planted a bunch. Well, he really didn't disc anything, and he just kind of ran over with his tractor, and his tractor tires are some ag tires, kind of because it was really soft. It kind of tore it up a little bit. So I'd imagine it'll probably start in those spots where the tires were kind of tearing it up a little bit. Just kind of curious to know your thoughts, since you were, I'm sure you've planted a lot of clover in your past. I like that idea, Todd. Done.
Yep. You can even bring tractor, huh?
Hey,
whatever.
I'm gonna tell you something, Mr. Prater. You just keep coming on. I'll put the word out on you. I've kept my mouth shut all along, but you go to ragging me, I'm gonna have to tell on you.
Oh boy, I love it. Somebody else giving you problems besides me. Yeah, so he wanted to do something, and so I'll tell you about my nuke yard. So we started this yard up. I'm gonna tell you about my failures, okay? And this is JW's words, operator error. So we started late season splits. I had I had several of them. I had two problems. One of them I told everybody last year. I put an ApiGuard treatment on them that was a little bit too heavy for the time of year, even though our temperatures had cooled back into the mid 82, 83 for a period of time. And I lost 10 nucleus colonies. They absconded because the thymol treatment was too much. So that was a failure number one. I lost 10, I think it was, and pretty aggravated at myself about it. But nonetheless, put them into winter. And when the dearth hit here, it was really rainy in the springtime. So the bees flew, some got some nectar, but it wasn't a record honey harvest for us here in Missouri. And I think that probably carried around a lot of different areas. But so going into winter, I was reluctant to continue to feed these nucleus colonies. Now they started to build some numbers and look okay, but what I should have done is I should have built the numbers up to a substantial number or substantial cluster. And in the past, my overwintering success on single nucleus colonies, a 5-framer, has been like in the 90 plus percentile. I've had great success doing it. So I don't usually take them out. And even if they're packed out by the end of the season, I leave them in the 5-frame nuke and they'll put additional feed on them, usually around February. And I've never had really a problem. This year, I had a problem. I know I didn't have clusters built that were big enough for the amount of extreme cold that we had in January and most of February. When I checked the hives in early February, we got that little warm up. Remember that, JW? Kind of started a warm up for maybe 3 or 4 days. I still had 3 nukes left, and all 8 of my singles in that yard were all fine. The rest of them had perished. So I had 10 of those nukes, I think it was, perish. That last cold snap since February, the rest of those nukes perished, small clusters, and 3 of those small singles did. Now, the other 5 of those singles, the only thing I have left in that yard, are all doing fine. And most of my other bee yards I have either 100% or 1, 2, 3 losses between 15 and 35 colonies. So that part looks really good. So I've learned a lesson this year. Don't trust Mother Nature that she'll give you a normal winter. Build the cluster as big as you can before you go in. So here we go. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, double them up.
That's me dripping oil-based dressing on my shirt. Melissa makes fun of me.
That just adds character, don't it?
This is actually a clean shirt. It just wouldn't come out. So, and I just got out of the shower. So sorry, DC, I'm not at my best. I did try to brush my hair tonight, though. I don't have a hat on, so there's that. So I have failure, JW. I failed that yard miserably. I get an F in that yard.
And I got a little trick I'll show you if you come out here. Is way I do them little young nukes. There's some cold weather coming on.
I know exactly what I would have changed. Well, 2 things. I would have continued to feed them at a light sugar syrup to build numbers, even if they didn't specifically need it, just a light sugar syrup to keep them stimulated. That's the first thing I would have done. The second thing I would have done is I would have put all those small nukes over a double screen board and flipped them the opposite way, and I'd have left them like that for the entire winter. So fail times 2.
You decide on what paint pen you wanted?
No, so that's interesting. You asked that. I was thinking about that earlier today, and
that's the difference in the 2 sizes.
Okay, so the one that you have with the bigger cap, what starts with an A? What's that called?
That's Paca.
Paca, yeah, that one.
Oh, this is Advantage.
That's the better one, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I didn't interfere with you and Joy's conversation, but I switched to those Advantage
Yeah.
About 3 years ago, and they're just. I've got some Poscos. If you want them, I'll give you if you come out.
It says made in the USA.
No, they are. They're both.
Yeah.
The in my opinion, humble opinion, the little push pin where you daubed your marker. It's
Yeah.
it's a little stouter and a little stronger.
On
Don't
the
put out
small,
such a
on
blob
this
at
one?
once. It's a better release on it.
Well, this one's 5 years old.
Yeah, I've
At
got
least
some.
5.
Yeah, I've got something like that also.
But Tom had asked me about them earlier. I had to run to the truck and get
Yeah,
it to see
I
what it
seen
was.
you. I seen you boys' conversation on that. I didn't. I started to say something. I thought, well, keep your mouth shut. You know your business.
No, I was looking for input. I just what people have experienced.
Oh, I'm missing the chat over here.
We've used the one, the Pasha or whatever that was, the Pasco or whatever. Yeah, we've used that one predominantly, but I have had one of the Advantage ones, and I think that I'm going to order more of the, because we usually keep 3 or 4 of the same color, because I'll keep one in the truck, one in here, and I'll keep them thrown around that way. And I usually try to keep one in my jacket for that entire year. So when I see a queen that's unmarked and I know that she's from that year, I'll just go ahead and pluck her off the frame, marker, and put her back down. I don't use it for identification on seeing the queen. I just want to know what year she was from, just for queen replacement. We're trying not to leave more than 2-year-old queens inside colonies, just for less swarming tendencies and better overwinter control. And we've started that just 2 years ago. So last year we had reintroduced a bunch of new queens into a lot of the operation, but we'll pay closer attention to that, I think, and keep up on keeping very young queens inside those colonies just for better overall success.
Hey Clay, and them 2 guys that's up above here, these 2 guys up above me here is the 2 that I was talking about when I text you this afternoon.
Hey, Philip. See, Philip Morris is in here.
Mm-hmm.
I missed him.
Phillips in here? I didn't see his name pop up.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is.
I saw him
Philip.
say hey to somebody, and I was going to go back and highlight his name, and he said hey to a lot of people.
Yep.
What you working on tonight, Philip? You in the wood shop going after something? Surely he's doing something.
He's not. He needs to come on in.
Yeah, come on in. JW, do you utilize a lot of double screen boards or kind of infrequently? How do you do that?
I use them all the time. That's basically what I split with.
Yeah.
Use what?
Double screens.
Oh, the double screens.
Yeah. I'm not saying that's the answer. I'm just saying that's the majority of the ones that I do. That's what I split with.
Yeah. I need to get the rest of mine finished up. I cut, I don't know, probably 50 3/4-inch pieces of just regular interior plywood, and I'm going to put 1x material around the outside and make an entrance on it. And my plan is to wax step them, and I'll kind of keep them around. I got the 3/4-inch plywood. They're cutoffs for next to nothing. $5 for a half a sheet, and I was able to get like 4 of them out of each, 4 or 6 out of each one, I think. 6. It was 6. So they were cheap for me. But I am looking to get a hold of some HDO this year, though. I think I was talking with Matt a little bit about it, and we might go in together and buy some sheets.
Well, I tell everybody, and you might have heard me say it. I don't know. But when I built mine, I had used some of the scrap for the 1x to give it the 3/4-inch rise.
Yeah.
I had used that scrap plywood, just regular plywood. And if you leave it on there too long and they get it glued down real good, you will separate that lamination.
Okay.
So when I build any more, that part's gonna be built with solid wood, like
Yeah.
one by shelving board or something.
I think you told me about that, Joey.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe a month or so ago. We had that conversation when I cut them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go to Menards and get some one by material and cut them down and glue them and staple them to the top. Then we'll throw them in the wax dipper. We're getting ready to wax dip in like 3 weeks, I think it is. So I think I've got like 75 boxes and about 50 double screen boards to do and some miscellaneous stuff. And then we're doing a bunch for the club too. So we'll fire that tank up and let it burn for a couple days.
If you dip them plywood top boards you use, if you're going to use them as migratories, you can dip them. I guess you know that, Tom. They'll last an awful long time. I've never had any separate that I dipped.
You're talking about just regular plywood?
Yep.
Okay.
Don't get this. What is it? CTX or the exterior? Whatever that number is. Somebody on the chat probably can tell you. But get the exterior type plywood, even if you get regular plywood. But the HDO's the stuff. If you
you just about have to buy the truckload if you're gonna get any though.
Well,
yeah, that'll cost $9,000.
Yeah.
I think there's 60 sheets to a pallet, and I think
Is there?
3/4. What are they saying? 100? What did you guys saying, Tom? 180? You thought somebody was saying here a while back?
No, it definitely wasn't that much. I thought it was only somewhere around like 120, 130 bucks or something.
The
like
last
that.
I bought, I got for 120.
Yeah, so
I
you're
got
looking at
some last spring off of Bob Bennett. He let me have some,
for how much?
and I think that's what I gave him for it.
Yeah.
He buys it. He does buy it, but the semi-load.
Yeah.
He gets that out of a warehouse out of Atlanta, which he's not that far from Atlanta, so.
Well, I don't have any use for that much of it.
Yeah.
Well, like I've told you, I don't know yet. I'll have to see if I can't find it for you guys that live down there amongst it. Haven't come up with it, but I believe I can come up with there's some available in St. Louis. I can tell you, whether it's available retail or not. My lumber supplier got it for me out of St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
But I got 1/2 inch. The 3/4 thicker than I like for my screen boards because I feed through mine and I like to put a screen on the bottom of where I put my feed buckets on.
Yeah, well, I definitely want 3/4. I'm certain of that. I want to stick with 3/4.
Yeah.
I know it'll be a little more expensive, a little heavier and stuff like that, but that's fine because I can even utilize that for making migratory tops and stuff like that too. My plan is this year to start at least one bee yard with 30 to 32 colonies, and I'm going to run them with no telescoping, no inner cover. I'm going to do the double bubble with migratory lids. I'll go ahead and probably put the feeder holes in them in case I decide to go that route with the lids or the caps in there. And then I want to use 2-way pallets that are wax dipped. And I'm going to run that for a year better just to see if it works out like I like it and want it to and see what my cost savings is. And depending on how that works out, potentially over time would start switching things out.
Oh,
Hey, there you go.
yeah.
Hey there, buddy.
Hi, buddy. Is that your grandson?
That's the youngest. Yep.
What's your name, young man?
Jacob.
Jacob? Oh, that's a wonderful name.
Yep.
My name's Tom, Jacob. You
Say
see
hey,
this?
Mr.
You
Tom.
see this guy down here below us? His name's Jerry.
Jeremiah P. Bosworth.
Him.
What'd you say?
I want to see him.
Can you see
See
him?
him right there?
Are you visiting Pawpaw tonight? Yeah.
Yeah,
Is he
he's spending the night.
What are the
Is he-
other boys? Are the boys right there?
Hey, does he take good care of you? Does Papa take good care of you, Jacob? Yeah, I bet he does.
Tell Mr. JW you like riding on the tractor.
I love riding on the tractor.
I'll bet you do, buddy.
He drives it too. All right.
You ready to go back?
Tell him bye.
Bye-bye.
See you, Jacob. Have a good night, buddy.
He had to come see his papa.
Yeah, he does. That's awesome.
They're in their homes.
He said, "Where y'all at?"
Where we at?
He thought y'all was here somewhere.
Oh, I got you. I seen where you said, "Where are those boys at?" Yep, we're on the same screen together. We have to be close, right?
Yeah, that's only logic.
Exactly.
Hey, Russell.
That's funny.
Red Hog, how you doing?
Yeah, so I'm definitely really interested in doing that. The getting those double screen boards in action, and I mean, I can even use those for early spring splits too. You know, for thermal regulation there. And then
I like the holes better than the full screens. I've got both. My first ones I built, I used to make them all with full screens, and here 2 or 3, 4 years ago, I went to just holes, and that's.
Yeah.
I think they put out more heat. It's more concentrated.
Mm-hmm.
I even made some double screens and put a little shim above it, 3/8 shim where I could set a nuke on top of an 8 or a 10.
Mm-hmm. I seen those.
Yeah.
I have a picture of my phone of the ones that you brought over and showed
Okay.
me. Beginning of winter, I think, or sometime when you picked up the sugar. I think I can't.
That'll help some of them nukes that's a little weak too. If you just stick them on top of a bigger hive where they get some heat off of them, whether you got
for sure.
doubled up or not. I didn't have any singles, but I had several doubles and 3 deep 5 frames that I never lost one of those.
Well, I'm convinced if those small colonies could have thermoregulated, that they would all still be here. And any of my colonies that had decent numbers they all look fine. I mean, I'm not experiencing again, besides operator here, I'm not experiencing the loss that a lot of these other guys are experiencing as far as whatever's going on. I'm just not seeing it myself.
Yeah.
Mr. JW, on your screens, you might have said this one time before, double screen boards. Do you have like 2 holes in it, 2 large holes, or one?
I've got some with 2 large holes. I even had, and I've got most of them anymore. I've went to basically about a 3-inch, 2 3/4, 3-inch, 1 large hole.
Yeah.
That's too big that's almost too big a hole for your, well, you can put them where you can put I like them a size where a lid will fit right down in them. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you want
That's
to feed
71
a jar instead of a bucket,
Yeah.
or a quart or a gallon, whatever's standard. That's 2 and 3/4 or 2 7/8, I think is what can lid
2
is.
and 7/8, or that's a little tight for a jar, but it'll work.
71 millimeter.
71
Yeah.
millimeter.
That's whatever that is.
According to Bob, it's 71. And actually, you can find those hole saws online, but you have to order them online.
71.
I actually ordered 2 of them over the winter, and my intention was to utilize those. I thought I could use them for making the 2 holes like Bob Benny does on the double screen, but I can also use them for top migratory covers if I want to go ahead and drill that cap hole in there, which will fit nice and tight inside there, so that I could use it ambidextrously between the 2 of them. So that was my thought. But I know I'll have to check out. I see Brad is in here. I know people have been telling me to go back to his channel, and I know I've seen him before. He has that good video I mentioned here earlier, Brad, before I think you might have popped in. I'm going to try 1 yard with 2-way pallets, but my 2-way pallets will be for 8 frame equipment, not for 10 frames. So I'll have to make minor adjustment for width on there. So I'll have to go back and find your video, or if you would be so kind, even if you know which one it is, maybe you could send it to me through Messenger, and I'll check out your design of how you did that. and see about putting some of those together here this year.
Brad needs to come on in and talk about it.
Yeah. Appreciate that, Brad. Just trying to evolve a little bit, you know what I mean? And simplify processes and procedures as well as equipment and, everything that makes it a little bit more cost friendly at the end game,
Joey, you got that link posted even?
Yeah. I see it up there.
I'm going back to the top, trying to. I don't know.
It's showing pinned on my side.
Okay. You have to ask your chatters if it's pinned. I don't see it. I'm not saying you didn't.
Yeah.
I'm sure you didn't, but it might
Can
not.
everybody see the pin, the link pinned at the top? Come in.
I told Matt to come in here.
Yes, it's pinned.
Okay, they said it is. Mike says it is there. Okay.
Yeah. See where Brad said he's cooking supper.
Yeah, that sounds good right about now. I haven't eaten. Yeah, I know, JW, you're getting ready to say something. I haven't eaten.
That is kind of strange, huh?
I'm telling you, Joey's got a tapeworm he's got to have. He can't be that skinny and eat as much as he eats.
Tell him how we went out to eat last night and we ran into people.
Oh, hey, I'm going to tell you a story. Guess what I did last night, JW?
It's probably not even fit the air. I'm not even going to.
No, I wouldn't say anything too off color, right? So I went out to eat last night. Believe it or not, Melissa and I took her as my date, and I'll tell you, would you believe that we ran into some bee folks from the club nearby that came over and visited with us for a little bit?
And what did she say?
What?
I should have known I'd run into you guys here.
She came over and she says, we were boxing up the pizza. We had this little pizza joint out there near us. And she goes, I'll take some of that. I'm like, oh, yeah, pull up a chair and sit down. You can have some. And she's like, no, her daughters were over there and her grandchildren were over there. And she was getting ready to sit down and eat dinner with them. And she goes, I should have known that I would see you guys here. She goes, you guys are always eating. I'm like, no, I just posted I'm always eating.
Hello, Matthew.
Hey, now, how you doing, guys?
What's up, Matt?
Be careful, Joey. They'll be trying to gang up on us. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Dirty side boys is rough.
We'll gang up on you, JW. We'll leave me again, Joey alone. This is his chat. He'll kick us off.
Yeah, Joey's safe. I know that.
Brad,
How you guys doing?
To you.
Pretty good.
Yeah, Brad. So you mentioned the W clips and the U clips. So I am thinking hard about doing the W clips instead of the U clips. I spoke with Dennis Cruz down there in North Florida, and he suggested that I use W clips for a couple reasons, and maybe you can clarify if you have other suggestions. But he said it'll keep the boxes apart by about roughly 3/4 of an inch. Now, I don't have a problem with fire ants in here, but he mentioned fire ants get in there and they'll build a nest in between them. He said it'll hold moisture in there too, and also you can get spiders that'll sometimes try to build in there. So he suggested using the W clip, which leaves that little bit of space in between the boxes. Maybe you have a different suggestion or a different reasoning beyond that. I'm not sure, but that was my thought. So I had already thought about that. And when he mentioned using the W as opposed, I thought that makes sense to me. So obviously I would accommodate my dimensions width-wise for that additional, whatever it is, 3/4 of an inch or so for that W clip instead. So, but if you get a chance, pop on here and walk me through it. Give me the pros, cons, the ins and outs, and any of that other good insider information from you guys that run them and know them and love them and hate them.
Yeah.
Promotes rot. Well, fortunately, all of my stuff is wax dipped, so that's lesser of a concern, but I would like to mitigate any moisture, between the two. So what's up, Popcorn Charlie?
Oh, not much.
How you doing tonight, my friend?
Well, it's cold and windy here tonight.
It is here also, Charlie.
It picked up around noontime, but I don't know, 4 o'clock. It must have been gusting 30, 40 miles an hour out there. I locked all the darn doors down, and there was some doors down at the mill there that I thought were hooked, but they weren't. Luckily, they didn't blow off, so I hooked them all up. Hey, Clay, and all that. Got into the bees today. Checked the food stores and all that. I got a video to put up for that so everybody can see the bees. That's pretty much it for me.
We had a bunch of wind yesterday here, so it blew its way east apparently.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was calm at 10 o'clock, and then right around 12 was when it started hitting, just like the weather people said. And it was around 57 today. And I just went right down the road behind me there with the camera and, going from one hive to the next and showing what was there, what wasn't there. Population. There's a couple of them that are a little light in population.
How are your bees doing overall, though, Charlie? I mean, everything looking pretty good? You pretty happy with everything?
I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, I had one hive that died out, which I kind of figured that out about a month ago. It was small. It was alive, let's say late January, about mid February, or almost to the end of February. And I had put some food on it. And they were up on it. But then this last cold snap, it knocked them out. And, their heads were in the comb. And they had maybe a pattern about 5-6 inches in diameter. They were alive. They weren't getting food, pollen. But then at the end, within the last week of their life, they got nosema. And, it wasn't that bad of nosema. But the only thing is, and I'll say it in my video, that hive, I had put one of them observation covers on. Now, it was small to begin with. And I got another one out there. It's the same, not as small, but it's still kind of weakish. And it's got the observation lid on it. And I don't know whether that has anything to do with it, letting the heat out or not keeping it warm enough. Everything's a condensing hive this year for me. Mm-hmm. Which that has, this was the first year that I insulated the roofs. I've been wanting to do it for quite a few years, but I just never got around to getting the insulation. It has worked. I have no moisture problems at all this year. And nothing on the inside, nothing on the inner cover or anything like that.
Hey, Charlie, what insulation are you using on that? Like an inch
on
and
the
a half?
top, on the styrofoam, it's 1.5 inches thick.
Is that the foil back stuff?
No, it's just a regular blue.
Purple or blue? The blue stuff. Okay. Hey, Matt, tell them about the stuff that you were using. Matt and I were actually just discussing that this morning about the insulation, and I was doing some calculating on how
the
many
winter that we had here. I know that we run about R12 to R15, just depending if it's migratory or telescoping covers, and condensing hive setup. And I have a feeling we did lose 10%, so we lost 7 out of the 70. And I feel like I know, it was almost operator error on each one of those. Just wasn't enough population to make it in the double deep, I feel like. But even with the surviving colonies, I feel like the heat dome effect with that condensing hive only helped the ones that did survive to be in the condition that they're in. For our operation, it's worked really well. So I know to each his own, and there's definitely preferences out there that best suit the individual beekeeper. But once I got over the the condensing hive theory, you know, and not wanting to have any moisture on top of the bees and insulated heavy on top. I didn't have a single drop of insulate or condensation on top of the bees that I've noticed, and I open them up, you know, pretty much throughout the season in the winter whenever I need to. So,
well, Matt, my hopes is to have Bill Heschbach in here later on this year, and probably later in the summer. He spoke a year before this last via Zoom because he couldn't get in at one of the other local clubs, Jane's St. Louis Beekeepers. But he's on my agenda for later on this year. I just need to
we had him come into my club that I was president of, and then he was also at the Maryland State, which he was actually flew in for that. And did that presentation, and it was nice. I got him, you know, by himself, and we got down to really talking some nitty gritty and things like that, and about his concern was if you put insulation, if you make a shim with insulation and you put that on his quote as your inner cover, the bees are going to come up to the top of that insulation, hang there. And he did that. And, you know, he's up in north there where they got lots of snow. And he didn't know that when he first started it. And now he's got 3 pounds of bees out in the middle of the snow.
Yeah.
And then he said, you know, you want to make like a screen inner cover or a screen area that it separates the insulation. That way you can take the insulation off, but the bees are still held down into the hive. But then I kept thinking about that and trying to engineer different ways of getting this all done. And so I wound up, what I did was I run inner covers. I just made a little piece of wood. I planed it down to about, maybe a 1/4 of an inch thick, 3/16 or 3/8 or something like that. A little square that covered up that center hole in the inner cover. Put the insulation on top of that, put my tele cover on top of that, and it works just fine. It keeps that inner cover warm. It was a cheap way of doing it instead of building all these special shims or whatever and everything. So that it's turned out well. Some tele covers are better than others. Some of them had a little bit longer side, which kind of went down past the insulation and then kind of down over the sides of the inner cover, which held everything on.
I did notice with insulating heavy on top, you have to be careful of any cracks or seals because that insulation is only as good as deep. So it's not going to do any good if you leave an 1/8 inch gap around something where air is going to come in there. That's kind of defeating the purpose. So
right.
That's part of my winter shim setup and how I do it. But I do use a Reflectix underneath the insulation, so it always does kind of have a seal away from the bees at that point. So
everything I got is
year-round.
Everything I got is strapped down with ratchet straps, so it's tight. And then so it was good to really have a one-on-one conversation with him. And once I had other
I
people
saw
have
your
been
video
doing
earlier
this.
today. That your bees are looking pretty darn good. I can see that.
But once I listened to his program
they're going to be exploding here in about 2 weeks.
His presentation, that's when I decided to go ahead with it.
Matt's lagging. I think Matt's lagging a little bit.
Okay.
That's why. I think it's his internet connection. Sometimes it's a little bit poor. Sometimes he lags a little bit.
It's like Tom sometimes.
Mine will do that sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was looking at that insulation that you were suggesting, Matt, with the foil bottom on it. And when I figured that out per my 8-frame size, I can get, 14 pieces out of it, I think. At that, when I figured everything in there, I was about $235 per hive is what it would cost me to put that on each hive.
Yeah.
Was what my cost would be on it.
So I know I insulated all of my tops for 70 hives for about $275. It was under $300.
Okay. Yeah.
That was intentional for my purpose and what I was trying to do. But yeah, got a pretty good deal on that. From my research, that was the best type of insulation, at least that foil face.
Yeah.
High density isopropyl something.
Well, you said it's a little bit better R value, and it has that foil.
I'm sorry, polyiso.
Yeah, it has that foil bottom, so the bee won't try to chew on it at all. Whereas sometimes I've heard people talking about bees chewing on some other insulation type properties.
They will. Yeah, they can chew right through regular insulation, no problem.
Yeah.
But that the Reflectix layer, inhibits that.
I use the back of a glass bowl to push it down.
Yeah, it kind of has that slick surface to it, basically. So I won't have to worry about that for a while here this year now, but seriously considering making a few changes to some things. So that's one of them I'm considering. So I have another question for folks. Just curious on how everybody does. Everybody's got a little different. So if I was going to go to a migratory cover, and I think I know what I wanted to do, would you build the shim into the migratory cover or not? Build a separate shim. And if you were going to build a separate shim, how thick would it be? Would you go 3/4, 1, thicker than that? What I'm wanting the shim for is for utilizing any type of fondant, apigard treatments, potential pollen patties in the springtime, so they wouldn't be on year round. So curious to what everybody's are, what your pros and cons are, and what you guys have seen in your own apiary, or what you like and what you don't like. And I know this is a lot of just preferential type stuff, but just thinking through all these little details.
All right, so you got a migratory
covers. I'm running a 3/8 spacer underneath all of it.
Okay.
I find anything more than a 3/8, and they're going to burr comb it. You give them a 1/2 inch, they'll fill it. But a 3/8 is pretty manageable. They'll just basically, with that Reflectix on top with a 3/8 spacer, gives them just enough room to corral some beetles if needs be on the top bars, but have too much room to go crazy.
Yeah.
But that's what I've seen.
Okay. What do you got, Charlie?
You're going to put a rim around the inner cover or the migratory cover.
Well, I'm not saying I am. I don't know if I'm going to lean that way, but that was a consideration that I thought about. Would I build them? Because me and Greg Burns were talking about this a few weeks ago, and he goes, you can build whatever you want. He goes, you want to build a shim onto the lid? You want to do a separate shim? You want it 3/4? You want it 1 inch? What do you want to do there? He said, he was trying to give me some ideas, and there's pros and cons to each. If I build a shim onto my lid, now I have to worry about burr comb, right? Is a potential consideration. Whereas if I just do a separate rim, I can make it a little thicker maybe if I want to, because I want to make sure that the bees can get, if I throw the apigard cards in there, I need them to be able to get on top of that, move it around, and drag it down. So there has to be enough space for that.
Yeah, now if you're going to do all that, then I would make a separate shim.
Mm-hmm.
I would make 1.5 inches, for apigard, or like my sugar bricks and stuff like that. I make about a 2-inch shim, 1.5 inches. I think it's 1.5 inches shim. I put my.
That's what I made for my apigard treatment.
Is that a 3/4?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
It's about 1 inch right here. This is 1 inch thick.
Okay. So I have those same shims for my 5-frame nukes. That I got them from Jane, though. I think they're a 3/4 by 3/4 or 3/4 by 1, and they have that cross piece in there to keep it squared up.
Yep.
What's that for, a nuke or what? That shim?
That one was for a 10 frame.
Yeah, but why was the bars going between the middle there?
Just to hold that card above. Just to help hold the card of the apigard itself.
I would imagine it'll assist a little bit in keeping it square. I mean, it's not perfect, but it'll probably assist in that long term.
Yeah. I mean, I got that idea from actually our local bee store. They sold them, and I was like, okay, I can make that on the table saw in, a couple minutes. I don't need to buy that.
Yeah.
And that was what she sold for a beginner beekeeper, basically to put the card on center and, I guess hold the card where it needs to be. But it really helped more for the space effect, on the, so it wasn't just right on the, gave them room to maneuver around on it.
Mhm.
So you're putting the card in between those two bars.
Yeah. That holding the
Instead of just
cards.
just putting it on top of the frames.
Yep, exactly. Because they're going to want to propolize it down anyway, but that at least helps hold it up just enough to where they still have to come in contact with it, but it's holding it right where it needs to be.
And that's the newest product that I'm going to be doing for mite treatments next year. So are you doing that in July or just what time of year?
Yeah, right after honey, basically. As soon as I pull the honey off.
I do mine in July also.
Yep. And this year later, because our flow seemed like it almost picked back up there at the end for just a little tail end of something. So I left it on, and then I didn't treat till probably towards the end of July, whereas normally about July 4th is where I'm gearing to be pulling honey, somewhere in there.
Same here.
Yeah, that's about where I'm at too. Now the nectar flow was a little bit longer this year.
It seemed like it kicked in a little bit later. Yeah, but I don't think it was necessarily goldenrod, but we did get
it wasn't that. It was something else.
Yeah, after I know the mimosas around here were just going nonstop. I feel like.
Yeah, so a mimosa tree around here you might find one here or there. More so as an ornamental tree.
Mm-hmm.
We had one in our yard here that long gone. We sawed it down a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, mimosas don't do good around here either because they require that warmer soil and warmer
necessarily
air.
call them wild, but there's a fair amount of them. You can definitely tell when you're driving when they're in bloom because they stand out. That pinkish purple bloom on it.
Yeah, Charlie, I can't imagine they'd be up near you. Probably a little bit too far north.
Yeah, and Bob Walker talk about them. And I've been down through Alabama, and I've noticed that they were on the sides of the roads and everything.
Yeah, and we'll have some of that here too. But there was also I know clematis really popped in last year. It seemed like that kind of a vining white flower, like a real small white flower, and that stuff was almost everywhere. I don't know where it came from.
I don't know. I was talking to the bee inspector, and she said there was an extended flow that we had last year that normally we just don't get that. The only thing I can think of, we had spider and lanternfly, and that definitely the last 2 years or more would fill your supers to get through we didn't have a dearth. I'll put it to you that way.
Mm-hmm.
And this year we'd hardly seen any of the bugs. I don't know whether they finally died off or what, but there was an extended flow. I thought it might be that. So I always try to get my honey off somewhere around the 4th of July before that type of stuff comes in, if it's coming in.
Yeah.
But my thing is I was always using, the last 2 weeks of July through August was Aprivar. I got my results back from the National Honeybee Survey, pretty much proved that stuff doesn't work anymore. And now I got to I usually do formic in September, oxalic acid from November, December, usually January, like this year and last year, too cold. This year, February was too cold. I probably could have squeezed it in February, maybe 1 or 2 treatments, but before January hit, I was watching, made sure that I cleaned my bottom chloroplast boards off to watch the mite drops.
Yep.
And I had got them to the point where there was pretty much 0 mite drops. And I looked at the chloroplast with the sugar. Sugar was on there from the sugar cakes, but I didn't really see any mites droppings at all. So I figured I'm in good shape when it comes to that. But anyway, I'm looking for, I got to get rid of Aprivar and Apriguard. Everybody says does a good job. And trying to, you're looking, like Tom and them, you got weather conditions that, temperature conditions that you got to look about, and dosage, which I already know is going to be 25 grams, and that kind of stuff. And I'm not, I know how to apply it. I've watched it enough of like Bob Benny's movies and stuff like that. That's not the problem. It's just getting, what would you call it, confident in working with the product and understanding the product and stuff like that.
Well, Charlie, I'll tell you this, personal experience, don't put 25 grams on a nuke whenever it's July here in St. Louis. Okay.
No,
I can tell you what, the outcome won't be what you're looking for.
well, even talking with Greg Burns came on, what was that? It was on Thursday night, I guess, with Horizontal Bees. He went into his experience with that stuff 3 or 4 years ago. And I think he even did say that he did it at 10 or 12 grams as the instructions said, and he still lost quite a bit of hives. Now, something that I do that they say they don't supposed to do is all my nukes are always 5/5. If it's a double deep, it's 5/5. If it's a medium highs, which I run a lot of mediums, and most of my stuff will be pretty much medium nukes for insurance purposes for my hives, and it'll be triple box, three. It'll be 15 frames, and I'll put a pad of Formic Pro on there, one pad on a double nuke, and I've never had any problems with that. And everybody goes nutso over that. And I said, well, wait a minute. You got 10 frames. You're going vertical instead of horizontal. And, you got the same amount of, it's just a different form box. And it works fine on that. But I will have to say this. I had a nuke that I sat there and hesitated. It was only 5 frames. It was a new bunch of bees with a new queen, and I should have never did anything to it. And I killed that hive with putting a Formic pad on it. So, live and learn.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yep. All those hard lessons,
What would you say, Tom, about if you do April guard on a nuke, would it be a 10 frame nuke and let's say, I don't know, 10 grams or something like that?
So if I was going to do it again, I know you said Greg said he had a problem before with doing a 12-gram dose.
I think he only did single boxes, though. I'm not sure about that.
Okay. I don't know that I'd be afraid to do that. I mean, maybe his experience was bad. Maybe I'm a slow learner. I don't know. But I think that's probably what I should have done. I was trying to hit a little too hard, a little too heavy. But we were also, our temperatures for midsummer at that time dropped down to about 80 degrees, which would be fairly cool for us. But it spiked up around like 85 or 86 one day or a couple days. But it was a few days after I put the treatment on. So my thought was, even though it was a little warm up and it cooled back down to that 80, 81, 82 degree mark, I thought the initial off gassing of that product would have already started to diminish a little bit. So the problems wouldn't be as persistent, on that. But all in all, when I use it on larger colonies, I don't see a problem with it doing it in there. Definitely will approach nukes differently. And I don't know, I may decide not to even use that treatment whatsoever on nucleus colonies, because this is the first year I built nukes that late into the season.
Yeah. Well, see, Steve says Greg got rid of 100, wiped out 100 at 12 grams.
Yeah.
I remember him talking a little bit about it. I didn't recall the exact number of what he had done, but that's a hard lesson. That's a lot of money right there.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
Yeah, I haven't tried Formic yet. That's one that I'm walking into with somewhat of caution. I don't know why. Something about the formic acid.
Well, I mean, this is my plan with it. My plan with Formic is I do the double pads. I do it in September, and usually it's Labor Day weekend. And here the last 2 years, it's been 80 degrees or less, and it's been low humidity.
Mm.
And, put it on in the evening, so it goes through the night while it's still it's off gassing at its peak, but you don't have the sun to be baking on them hives.
Mm-hmm.
And it does a fine job. Now the thing of it is, 2 strips, it'll penetrate the cappings. 1 strip, it won't quite do the job. And that's first Dr. Sammy Ramsey. I actually asked him that question directly and all that. And that's what he actually stated.
Yeah, that's seems like it'd be an effective treatment. I just haven't gone down that road yet, but
well, 80% of your mites are underneath the cappings, and that's what this is what it's going for.
Yep.
Because I always had the question, well, why is it so effective if a third of the bees are out on the front porch?
Mm-hmm.
Because they can't stand the gas. Well, it's a under the cappings treatment is what it actually is.
Yeah.
It'll kill thoracic mites too, but under the cappings is the main thing. And then I know Bill from Shenandoah, Nancy there, she's going to do formic in April in the spring. I believe Greg Rogers, if you watch some of those videos that Bob put out with him,
Mm-hmm.
he talked about a game plan of putting it in the spring and in September, in the early fall and all that. So
what was your take, Charlie, on those same videos with Greg Rogers about the extended release oxalic? Like if you were going to put those pads on, it would be most beneficial almost this time of year, early spring, the lowest numbers kind of in the hive in general versus trying to
yeah, I mean, the only question I have about it, and I know it's legal and all that stuff about, having a treatment on when you got the honey supers on.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's still a treatment with my, with a food box on there.
Yep.
And that's something I try to shy away from.
Yeah, we do too.
Where the honey is, I'm selling food, and I don't want any type of contamination of anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big thing that I have concerns about.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Now, the other problem of it is like this year, all right, I should be doing, I'll say April guard in July, but that's about the time I really need to be requeening because I need to requeen this yard again. And you don't want to be doing April guard while you got fresh queens in there.
Yeah.
Because you're probably going to, they're going to maybe, it'll be detrimental, it'll mess up the relationship between the queen and the brood and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's, I know Steve said something about OA and the honey is especially, there is OA in honey. There is actually OA in pretty much all your honeys, I believe it is. And everything. I don't know. I mean, I like I say, I was talking about that last night about requeening and coming up with a program of, I like a program to where I know I'm going to do this at a certain time, look at a certain set of parameters and stuff like that. And, so it's, I don't like guesswork.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with my mite treatment program. I can tell you the months, I can tell you the parameters of each product as far as temperatures. If it's most of the stuff, most of your organics are all temperature sensitive. That's why everybody likes synthetic Aprovar, because it wasn't temperature sensitive. Put it in any time.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now that's not working. So that's, what you have to put up with. And for me, it's finally a learning procedure with, like you say, with requeening that, I had queen failure last spring, got a whole bunch of queens, put them in, 180-degree turnaround. And it did a great job. I got actually more honey than I did the year before that, by about 25 or 30 pounds.
Wow. That's great.
And I was talking to the commercial beekeeper that comes on my channel. I can't think of his name right now, but he said that, fresh queens like that will make you more honey because they're laying more brood.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Brad was talking about it, and Bob, they watched it. Man Lake had this gal out of Texas. She's a science person. And actually, after watching the video, I said, I've seen this same person at the Maryland State. She had Zoomed there, but I was, sometimes it's always the way the presenter presents their information, where it's like it's boring the way she did it, and it was so much information. She was covering so broad of a spectrum. And then you have an instant like I had where they had the queen issue. Then when you kind of focus in on what she said just about the queen part of her presentation, whereas after the first year, queens lose about 40% of their laying power or production, I guess you would call it, after, in the second year. And then I'm thinking to myself, how much do you lose after the third year if it makes it that far?
Right. Were they at 20% in the third year?
Yeah, another 30%, 40%. I mean, the hives that I had were still alive. They had queen, you could find her.
Mm-hmm.
I had medium frames, and I had that much cap brood on one medium frame.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of the whole frame being capped, instead of 4 or 5 or 6 frames being, laid up.
Yeah.
She was totally wore out.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I would never. I thought if I had 500 pounds of honey for that year, last year, I was going to be lucky. And I had over 1,000 pounds of honey come in. And it was like, man, what a difference the queens make.
Hey, so I was trying to look up some stuff on Highland honey, talking about, I think they're in Missouri, and I don't know if she answered that or not. So she was asking about trees that bloom and how quickly that they bloom. So a few of them that I thought about around here would be, first of all, the American linden, but that takes about 10 years to see a bloom on it. The poplar tulip is about the same, somewhere about 10 to 12 years before you see a bloom. Black locust, which is a great nectar and honey. The problem is it's super tender and it is very susceptible to harsh rain, cold snaps, hail, even heavy wind can mess up the bloom for the season. So it's tender that way. But I think that's still like 12 years before you'll see off of that. The quickest one that I found that I know we have in the area that grows fairly wild here in St. Louis, and it puts out a lot of seedlings. That actually is only about 3 years before you see blooms on that. So it's fairly quickly when it comes to that. But it looks like anything that you're going to plant is probably going to take somewhere about a decade before you can start to see any nectar off of it. And I'd say because the size of the tree, it's going to be fairly small crop at that.
Russian olive, autumn olive, Russian olive, Tom, or bush honeysuckle.
Yeah.
For a small patch, it'd be my recommendation.
Yeah,
and
and
they
those
don't
get
like
pretty
it.
big.
5 years from now, you can push that out you can pull that out by hand almost. It's not rooted very deep.
Yep.
and you'll have flowers off it in 2 or 3 years.
That's a good point. Thinking about a bush form, not really a tree. That's a good one. The other one I would say is oh crud. Joey, help me out. What do y'all have that bloom? I'm thinking of something, but I can't verbalize it right now.
Tallow.
You guys have it down there in the south. It gets a little cluster of white blooms on it. It's somewhat
Tallow tree. Tallow.
No, not tallow.
Locust.
Privet. Privet's another one. That's a fast grower. Thank you, Jeremy. He popped it in there. Privet. Thank you, sir. Privet. That's another good one. That's a fast grower. I don't know how quickly it blooms, but it can't be that long because that bush grows pretty quickly, kind of like the bush honeysuckle.
It'll take over, kind of like tallow does. It'll take over.
Yeah, we can't. Let's see.
A lot of farmers around here use it to keep their fences up.
What's that? The privet?
Yeah. You can't see
around here. Around here, the English people from England, they were fox hunters and stuff like that. Here comes the I guess it was a farm bureau back in the day. The living fence, which was multiflora rose. And it was like, it is the most terrible stuff you could ever get a hold of. 'Cause it's stickers and it gets wider and wider and wider. And then you got to take a bulldozer in there to push it out.
We don't have it like that, but we had the multiflora rose here in our area. It'll grow along the edge of the tree lines and things like that. But it's not going to get quite like what y'all are talking about.
Well, up here, they put it, the English people put it where the fence rows were. And then, of course, the birds take it everywhere.
Yeah.
It's miserable. But it seemed like here lately, over the last 20 years, people have pushed it out so much that it's gotten fairly under control.
That's one of my favorite part about the farmers we have in the valley. I would consider them kind of lazier farmers in the sense that they let their hedgerows go in between the cattle fields and the barbed wire. Some of those hedges are 30, 40 feet tall. It's just what I consider bee paradise. I mean, it's got locusts in there, red buds, you name it, catalpas, tulip poplars. They do a pretty good job of helping feed the bees, just kind of being old school farmers. They're not trying to have the clean cut farms. They really don't care what people think. And, for me, it's excellent bee neighbors, but I know that our bees hammer those fence rows and hedgerows.
Yeah, you brought up a good point I didn't think about, Matt. You said catalpa. Catalpa is a really fast-growing tree, but it's a trashy tree. It'll develop weak spots, a lot of dead branches. I wouldn't put it in a manicured yard or lawn.
You talking about a catalpa tree?
Yeah, catalpas. Yeah.
Yeah, I got one sitting out here. It's I think the biggest tree in Harford County or something.
Yeah, I think
my
that's
grandmother brought
isn't it?
Brought it in a suitcase about that big and planted it.
Yeah, my mom used to call them lady cigar trees. She would.
The worms make wonderful fish bait. That's what I like about them.
Yeah. The thing of it is, catalpa tree, the bees don't really particularly care for it.
Yeah.
Well, they may not. I've seen bees on it many of times, though. It may be how it blooms here in our area, and maybe the lack of something else, is the reason they'll work it.
Yeah,
I don't know how beneficial of a pollen source and or nectar source it is, but I've clearly seen bees on it many of times in and around our area. It's that late season, midsummer blooming. I guess it's kind of late summer blooming tree here in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a trashy looking tree though. It'll drop a lot of limbs and stuff like that. So
limbs and big old leaves and all that stuff.
They all have their place though,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of some ideas that I knew that we had around here because the Highland honey is kind of around where I'm at. You said 5-6 in the grow zone. I thought she said.
I think they're in the Ozark Plateau, a little below us.
Oh, okay. Well, that should be 6 then. Actually, that's a 6 grow zone, I think.
From what I remember on a previous chat, I think they're sounds like a few hours south of us, maybe.
How does that saying go? Old men plant trees in Under shade that they'll never see, or how does that saying go? Help me out, you guys. Some of you are some gray hair in here. You guys, come on.
I know the best time
Todd, you're older. You know what I'm talking about, man.
No comprende.
I'll tell you what, I planted 200 over 200 basswood linden trees, and also black locust, which is redundant because we have thousands of black locust trees. They're huge, giant trees. But I'm just doing it, I guess. I'm really doing it to feed the deer more than anything, because that's what's going on with them. But I guess for me, I thought I was going to help out the bees in 20 years from now. So that's why I did it. But
I got some starwood seed off of Bob Benny.
did you?
I planted some last year, and I'm 0 for 9 last year, so I planted some more today, and I expect to be 0 for 5 on them, but we'll see what happens.
I was going to say, good luck. It don't grow on that flat land, does it?
Oh yeah, I can grow anything.
Y'all might get someone else to plant that clover for you if he's got luck like that.
Yeah.
How you doing, Todd?
Not too bad. Not too bad. It's warming up here, and I think I told you guys before. I put it in the comments, but I don't think anybody saw it. Would I chase JW away?
Yeah, he gets mad easy. He's like a high school girl. He gets offended easy. Don't worry
I'm
about it.
I'm here. My dog
Oh, dang it.
in and out like a yo-yo.
Oh shoot, he heard me. Doggone it.
I put it in the comments, but I don't know if you guys saw it. I'm just being totally honest. I had 74 hives in July, and today I have 12.
Man.
So whatever it is, and I have a good idea what it might be, and I have something that I'm trying. We'll see what happens. But yeah, it was like 84% loss.
Hey Todd, is this what we spoke about in St. Louis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wanted to come on real quick about the organics. So, there's a humongous pollinator out here that I ran into one day at Dayton. He was buying Formic Pro by the pallets, and he was having them loaded onto his truck, and he runs like 2,500 colonies, he and his sons. And so I struck up a conversation with him, and he was talking to me about how he used Formic Pro. And what he does is he gets a forklift and he puts his long, I forgot what it's called, those long lay down freezers on the back of a flatbed. He puts a generator on there. He turns it on and he freezes the Formic Pro. He'll have it frozen the night before, the day before. And when they're ready, they go out in the field, they open the freezer up, take the packs out and slap them on the colonies. What that does, excuse me, my allergies are starting. What that does is it slows down the flash of the Formic. So it's, not as harsh. Now, another thing that I remember him telling me about was, yeah, you're going to lose queens, but those are the queens that you're going to lose anyway. Some of those weaker queens, for some reason, they turtle, that they're done.
Maybe a dying pheromone or a weakening pheromone on an older queen, possibly.
Yeah, who knows?
I've heard that same thing that you're mentioning before, Todd. I've never used the Formic Pro, but I've heard that very same thing. And I thought that was a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, and so to be clear, I haven't used it either. I might try it this year. I don't know. It's going to be a weird year. But the other thing I want to talk about real quick was Apigard. So I use Apigard, and I use it in the fall. I use it depending on the temperature. I don't go above 90 degrees. Actually, 87, 88 is where I stop. But if it gets up that high, I'll use 4 doses of 25 milliliters. Excuse me. And yeah, it's a pain in the butt, but you go in there every 7 days. You refresh the little wax paper and do it for 4 weeks, and boom, you're done. In my experience that I've used it for probably the last 6 or 7 years. I've not lost a queen using it, but I will say I have lost a colony that might have been too small, even for a 25 gram dose. that they just absconded. But if I think, if it's something small like that, you have to do something else, maybe OA, whatever. But if the temperature is right, you could use three rounds of 33, where you can make 33, 33, and 34, whatever adds up to 100.
Yeah.
And it works. I've never had the chance of doing 50 and 50 because when I use it in September, it can still get in the hundreds over here. I was thinking about switching it up this year and doing it in the spring, but now I'm down to 12 colonies, so I'm going to rethink everything out. So
Todd, what you mentioned doing a 33-gram dose on the larger colonies, I actually have done that. I think it was a few years ago. My temperatures weren't coming down, and I wanted to get my Apiguard treatment on, but I wanted to do it where I wasn't running the bees away. And I did do the 3 treatments at the 33-gram dose, and I had good success and good luck. It did knock the mites down, and they didn't run out of the colony. So that was a win for me.
And what it does is it's really wild to watch, but what it'll do is it'll interrupt the pheromones in the colony, and the queen will stop laying. And then when you're done, you go back in there and look a week later, it's like slabs of eggs and uncapped brood. I mean, it's crazy. And it really triggers her. Like, that's one of the reasons why I use it in the fall, is because it really triggers her to lay up a big nest for the winter. So
yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned that. I've noticed that myself too. Now, this last year when I had it on, not every one of my queens stopped laying, because when I had it on, I'd come back in and check and just to see what it looked like. Some of those queens were still laying, but I would say a larger majority of those colonies, the queen would slow way down on her laying. Now, I very rarely ever seen a queen replacement on it, but like you said, if I did see it, I didn't overly concern myself about it, because I'm like, maybe she wasn't worth having, and I just plug a nuke right in the middle of that thing and keep on rolling. So that for me was, I didn't consider that a loss. I was okay with it, just.
I love using it. For me, it's really tricky because of the temperatures. Yeah. I have to look. I have to look like a month ahead. I look on the 90-day schedule, which is not accurate, to the degree, but it kind of gives me an idea of where the weather's going. And I love using it. But like I said, I was thinking about doing it in the spring this year. Little did I know I was going to have 12 colonies coming out of winter. But and I had most of my loss was in the fall, where I've never had loss in the fall.
Sounds like this is going to be a rebuilding year for Loma Vista.
Yeah, it is. It's something else, but it is.
This is one of those things that and most of us here, just as a hobbyist-ish, kind of a sideliner, whatever you want to call it. We don't do this for our source of income here or what have you, but those are those things that, just really humble you. It's just like you think you're getting things figured out, and then what's worked for you in the past for the last 3 years all of a sudden throws you this curveball and just absolutely, just hammers you hard with it, and you're just humbled by it again, and you realize that, there's not always a one-size-fits-all answer for probably most anything that we're doing here. There's probably a few hard lines, but they're not many.
I think I'm not beating myself up about it, because it's a loss. Well, there's large losses everywhere this year. So I know it's got to be something external or something that I did not do. So that kind of is, that kind of helps a little bit. But
yeah,
the other thing is you have to learn from your mistakes. And so that's how we learn as humans. And so that's what I'm going to be doing again this year, is starting back up. Now, I'm probably going to limit myself, because it is kind of hard to do a full-time job in this at the same time, especially in the summer when it's 105 degrees. But we'll see what happens.
When you were doing 33 grams, Todd, what was your temperature?
In the mid 80s, lower 80s. Yeah. But again, you know what, Charlie, I'm different from you because I don't have the humidity to deal with. I mean, humidity.
Well, I'm hoping early July will be in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like you say, if it's got high humidity, then maybe still keep it at 25.
Yeah, maybe. The best way to do it is just experiment and find out, what works best for your area.
Mm-hmm.
The question that was on there, the lowest I think that you could use ApiGuard is 65 degrees.
I just looked it up. It said 60.
What's that?
When I looked it up, it said 60.
Oh, did it? Okay.
I'll preface this with that's the AI answer. That's not the actual label on there. So Todd, you could be right.
I had a label around here somewhere. I have a bunch of them, but it's 60 something.
What's funny, Todd, is like that says the range can go up to 104. No. I wouldn't put that stuff on a colony unless I was trying to murder the entire thing at 100 degrees.
Hell no.
Whoever has never put a colony of bees, there's no way.
That's a good way to run them out. That's no way.
Yeah.
No way.
Well, Benny said that on the video. If you go back 2 years ago, he had it was a friend of a friend out in, I'll say Oklahoma or someplace like that. And it was 104 degrees or 100 degrees. And they put whatever it was on 50 grams or 25 grams. And it killed these darn hives out. And it's like, man, you don't do that. Bob said, if it's 90 degrees or more, I don't put it on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
you have to be careful.
Even in July, that's tough to get here. It can easily get in mid to upper 90s here. I mean, July, August in St. Louis can be pretty swelter. I mean, high humidity. That's probably highest. You wake up in the morning and you can just almost cut your way to the truck. It's just slicing through the humidity as you're walking. So
what's funny, Tom, is I saw that tub that you just brought, and John Hill was talking to me, and he says, "Hey, are you going to order another couple of tubs?" I said, "Well, no, not this year. I don't think I'm going to be able to go. I think a tub would last me 3 years at the rate I'm going now."
Oh, you'll build back up.
Yeah, Todd, I'm confident you'll be built back up pretty quickly here.
Yeah, I'm not too worried.
You've been doing this a long time.
I'm going to have to call JW, though, for a few pointers.
Tom and I are going to go out there Monday just to try and learn a thing or two. I know that.
I'm lucky at work and lucky in love.
I need some of your luck to rub off, JW.
You have to watch out for that. It takes maybe a week or two for it to start.
That stuff he's got in that bucket. I'm just speaking from myself now. I'm going to suggest it. If you use that stuff on nukes on a regular basis, you'll have more losses than you'll have non-losses.
Yeah. And
whatever temperature is, because it varies too much by humidity and other factors. It's not just a temperature factor, boys. I'm telling you.
It does give instructions for using it on 5-frame nukes, but I wouldn't do it on 5-frame. I would do something else. It'll burn them out.
If I'm concerned about a 5-frame nukes Mite level, I'll OA them, but to be honest, we try not to really get our numbers out of control to where we're trying to do evasive maneuvers of some sort of treatment to save a colony. We're trying to, and we're not perfect, but I'm just trying to keep those numbers as low as possible throughout the season to where I'm not fighting some uphill battle. I mean, it's already an uphill battle as they, exponentially grow through the season.
Well, I'll put in a caveat. I use ApiGuard myself every year. I use it for one of my treatments. I absolutely refuse to use it on nukes.
Mm-hmm.
And what time of year do you use the JW?
All different times. I really do. Primarily in the fall on ApiGuard.
Okay, so here's the actual label.
It says, fall, though. I'm talking September fall. I'm not talking, October, November.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
this says, for best results, do not use the product when the maximum daily temperature, somebody asked that earlier, is lower than 60 degrees or when the colony activity is very low. And this also says, and this is what Todd and I just mentioned, Do not use the product when the maximum daily temperature is above 105. There is no way I would put this on my enemy's colony at 105.
I could barely stand outside in a bee jacket at 105 anyway.
And I would suggest if you are going to use it, another trick that I've found is I'll set that card out for half a day or so before I ever put it in the hive. You understand what I'm saying? Let that initial off gas get off that stuff. And that makes
you apply it to the pads and then you leave it out for a day?
I don't put the pad in. Well, half a day a lot of times.
Oh wow.
So do you feel like the efficacy is still what it should be, even by allowing it to off gas like that?
I do. When I pick my times when I use it. But I'm going to suggest, and it's just a suggestion on my part, that the humidity's got about as much to do with it as the temperature.
I feel like you're right. Based upon my previous, I've been using it for 8 years now, and I feel like I've noticed more. Sometimes it's a little bit more harsh, and the only difference would be because I've never put it on a colony above 90 degrees.
All right.
But I feel like it's probably humidity driven.
If you got screen bottom boards, do you close them up like when you do for forming?
So I think you're supposed to, but I never have. I don't even close my bottoms up when I do oxalic acid vapor. I leave them wide open.
Well, mine are tight when I do OA.
I close mine. I put that debris board on just to get a drop, count my drop or see what they're looking like.
Yeah.
I was wondering whether if you put that April guard on there and you put a medium super on top, they give it more air. I guess the stuff I guess it's heavier than the air goes through the hive.
Yeah, it's a heavier gas, so it's going to drop. You mean an empty medium or something with frames or
empty medium?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at giving it more air volume, I guess you would call it.
Like an attic. You got to put an attic on there. Yeah. That would probably work pretty good.
Are you talking about with the Apigard?
Bird?
Yeah.
So I've done that in the past whenever I didn't have any shims out there. Toward the end of the tail end of a honey flow, when I pull my supers, Melissa will Mite check, and then we'll immediately throw down the cards of Apigard. I'll throw an empty deep super or deep box with undrawn frames on the top of that so that they have excess room, because if there are still any wax producing bees left in there, they're still stimulated enough. Sometimes they'll draw me out a handful of frames without even feeding. And it also, like you said, gives them a little bit of extra breathing room. And I've had pretty good success doing it that way for the last 3 years anyway. So I believe Jeremy Lindsay said that's what he does actually. He puts I think he said medium super. So correct me if I'm wrong there, Jeremy, if you're still on, but I thought that's what he mentioned earlier. So it's a good way to build a attic in there, if you will.
Hey, Joe.
Man, it looks like you got a lot of pronix behind you.
Yeah. Yeah, those got about a month left of being stacked like that, and pretty soon they're going to be filled with bees, before too long. So
yeah,
I bought in bulk, went in with some fellow keepers with the right thing in mind. They wanted to buy them in bulk too. So
yeah,
a couple of them are on this screen right here.
You got those from John at in Louisville?
No, we got these. Actually, JW picked them up, or so. I like them for basically to sell nukes out of. I did use some for mating nukes last year, so they're somewhat flexible, as far as what you're trying to do. I actually take an empty one to carry around my OA when I go around with my towels and blocks of wood or whatever I'm using. So I use them as a little carrying thing too. But they work pretty good. I was a little hesitant to use them for mating, but they actually work pretty good. To be honest, I was surprised.
I had y'all muted for a second. Did y'all answer this question?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I wouldn't worry about it for 3 years. Keith,
Yeah.
3 years is that comb's just getting slightly brown.
Yeah, that's not that many brood cycles in 3 years. Now, I would preface it with this, so I wouldn't be concerned about 3-year-old comb, but the only time I would is if I felt like those bees I had a problem with colonies, maybe like they got into a herbicide, pesticide, fungicide, or something bad. If I had any question about it, I wouldn't waste. I mean, what's a frame now? $3, $4, whatever. I'd throw every one of them away if I felt like they were compromised in any way, shape, or form, because another nuke is pretty expensive compared to that, you know?
Hey, Paul.
That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, let's see, where's he at? It's brown, but it's not real dark. And what they're kind of talking about is you'll see them, it's like almost jet black frames, and they're about as hard as concrete.
Yeah.
Those are the ones you need to chuck.
If you push your finger into it and it doesn't give, throw it.
Yeah. Now what he's got there is like what I have. They're brown. They're light. They're a darker brown or a light brown, and no problem. And all that stuff. So. But I don't know. I wouldn't worry about it being a 3rd-year beekeeper.
No, I wouldn't either.
Keith.
I bet I still got some that's close to 8-10 years old.
I know I do.
I wouldn't sell it in a nuke, but sooner or later I'd get them probably culled out. But
some of that older comb almost gets to where it's starting to get a little bit more rounded off into a circle versus a hexagon. All the you can visibly see the side walls of the cells get smaller, a little bit.
Yeah, well, that's because of the cocoons keep gradually building up.
A lot of our combs, we don't have any comb that old. We're, oldest comb we have is going on 3 years right now.
That's a good spot to be in, Matt.
Yeah, I guess. They say about that 3rd year, though.
Yeah.
Stay intentional, have a plan.
I have actually pulled comb out, said I'm going to dispose of it, and need to set another swarm box, and I'll put it right back in there. So you know what that does? Puts it right back in a hive.
Yeah.
You and Matt, you and Tom going to the nuke business big time. You won't have to worry about changing that. You'll get rid of enough of it that you won't have to worry about it.
Yep. That's one thing about it. I know every nuke I'm selling, it's I almost want to shed a little bit of tear because I know how hard I had to work to draw that comb out.
I know, right?
Get the queen and make the bees, but it's a it's a double-edged sword. So what can you do? You got to pay for it somehow. So.
That's right. Just build that into the cost factor of beekeeping expenses, right?
Yeah, you got that right. I'm not in it for the money. That's an obvious. There is some money to be made, though. I don't want to say it like that. So.
You're in it for the money, but spending it, right?
Yeah. Money, my part takes that honey money. I don't even know where it goes. It just disappears.
Hey, Matt, quiet, man. Don't say anything. Alicia V is in here now.
Oh, boy.
Zip it up.
Yeah, so I
Chat stops. The boss is in town, bud.
He's always watching.
Uh-oh.
Did you get him all dialed in, Sandy? Get him all squared away? He was on his best behavior when you were gone, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
I think he was a little bit scared, honestly, for screwing up, if I'm being honest here.
I slept with my teddy bear all week, but I'm a tough guy like that.
Oh, man, she's calling you an employee now.
Yeah.
Hey, you better go in the house and handle that lady.
I'm going to stay out here in the shop where it's safe. I'll tell you.
Good call. Good call.
Safe place.
Oh, and start cutting something. Or something. Be like Philip Morris, start making migratory lids, and be out here all day.
That's right.
Stay safe.
Well, I'm going to duck out, guys, but I just wanted to add my 2 cents on the organics there.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Todd.
Good seeing you, Todd. Hopefully the rest of the season is kind to you and
Oh, yeah.
you'll grow the
No
numbers
worries.
back up.
I'm not sad about it. I can't change it. It happened. It was out of my control. I'm just looking forward to see what's going to happen next. So I'm not worried.
Well, listen,
It'll
keep
get
us.
better. You just come back out and visit again. We'll change your luck again.
There you
He's
go.
got to go cook.
Yeah, I
Todd,
got to
keep
cook
us-
dinner.
He's probably got more in his mind than cooking, the truth be known, but I'm not going to say anything.
No. You got that all wrong, JW.
Well,
Good
Todd,
point.
you can't believe a word he says. He lies more than he tells the truth. So,
it's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I'm telling you.
hey, Todd, keep us posted on the on your situation, though.
Oh, yeah.
What we spoke about in St. Louis. I'm interested to hear
Oh,
that.
Yeah. No, I'll keep you going on that. It might be interesting. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yep, you have my ears. You have my ears open.
And just I think it was tonight. JW said something. He's got dirt on me. He got nothing on me.
He just talks.
He's all talk.
You can't trust those guys from Illinois, Todd. I'm telling you right now.
They're on that naughty side of the river.
That's right. Yep.
Well, you had a good evening. Good to see you.
Be good, and I'll talk to everybody later.
See you, Todd.
All right, see you later.
See ya.
That was a really good time when he came up to St. Louis. We all had a good time visiting and stuff, and he was I'm glad he made it. He made his way.
Yeah, he'd been wanting to come to conferences. He had never been to one. And looked like he had a really good time.
Yeah, he said he did. I hope he enjoyed himself.
I picked
he
him up.
definitely had a good time.
When I picked him up from the airport, he was just like, he was excited, and we had a great conversation, and you would have thought we were friends for years, and he's just, he's a super nice guy, just as pleasant in person, as you would imagine being on the chat and seeing him. So he had a blast. I know that. Hey,
all I know is those guys kept us up late. What was that, Friday night, sitting on the couch out there in the lobby of the hotel room chatting. I'm like, man, I got to go to bed. I have to get up at like 5 o'clock.
That. They kept you. You had showtime the next day. You had to be on your best behavior and performance. So
I'll tell you what. It took me a long time. By the time I went up there to the room, took a shower, went to bed, I didn't fall asleep until probably 1 something, just thinking through things, and then my mind woke me back up at about 4:30. So I got up, took another shower to wake myself up, and I went downstairs at that point. And it was quiet as a church mouse down there in the whole conference area, and I just started working on stuff.
Clark Street, Brian and myself, we didn't go to bed until 3 o'clock that morning.
Wow. That reminds me of being at Nobby, meeting Charlie and Joey and JW the first time. It was like I went back to the hotel room. You would have thought, it was like I couldn't sleep. I was so pumped and energized. Like, I just Joey and Charlie again.
We're just beekeepers. That's it. Hey, Brad.
Evening, everyone.
Evening, Brad.
How are your characters tonight?
Trying to behave.
Good. We're living life. Up the storm.
We're just buzzing right along.
I've been listening to most of it. Just filling my face, though. So.
Hey, Brad, that snow on the ground behind you makes me feel a little cold. I wish you'd change that to green grass or something.
Yeah, well, I walk outside. It makes me feel cold, too. So.
No,
it's not going to change for me. It's not going to change for you.
I'm going to magic marker around that white.
It was minus 28 when I woke up today. Sorry, JW, I stepped on you.
I said, didn't I hear you tell Bob Walker the other night that's a 2 or 3 year old picture there anyway?
Yeah, that's not recent. There's more snow there now than there is in the picture. That's move out day a couple of years ago. 23, I think maybe. Move out day in April. It's about the first week in April, I think it was. So, yeah, Yeah, like I say, it was minus 28 last night, and it's going to be 2 degrees tomorrow. So this is warming up. It's going to melt some snow.
We went the other way. We
Yeah,
went from 70 yesterday to it's 28 here right now.
always happy to see the snow melt. That's for sure.
Is
Oh,
your
stop.
winter snow season about done, Brad? Or are you thinking another storm will come in? Get another foot of snow, or
Oh,
how
we
do you,
normally get quite a bit of snow in April, but it doesn't stay very long. I have pictures of my apiary every year in April, about the second week, third week, of about nearly a foot of snow comes down. I get all the bees moved out. I get them fed, treated, patties on, jars on, pails on, and then get a foot of snow. It seems like it's the same every year, but it's okay. It doesn't matter. It's they're all cozy at that point. The snow really does them a lot of good, to be honest, temperature wise. Stay warm. Yeah. So I don't know. Should be about the same this year. I'm looking at the extended forecast, and it should be first week in April when I move out.
I was just talking to JW earlier on the phone. We're about a week to maybe even 2 weeks back from where we may have been last year, even as far as the season's going so far.
Yeah, you've had a lot of cold weather. I'm quite surprised how cold it's been in the south. Very cold for a long time.
Yeah, it's warming up enough to where it's the bees are starting to flirt with maybe brood. I don't know. I haven't been into any of them, but I think we're JW. What do you think? We're at least a solid 2 weeks behind Joey down there.
Yeah, we would be. We're too late, or I'm over 2 weeks later than I have been the last couple of years for a flow starting this year. This is a late season for us.
Mm-hmm.
I did my last splits last year, 1st of April, but it's not going to be that way this year, I don't think.
I know our silver maples and the red maple actually in our front yard is starting to open wide open. So it's got stamens and it's some of those buds they're not buds anymore. They're little flowers. So
mine's starting to, but they're not actually opened yet. They're what I call the mini bud. The main clusters opened up. Them little ones that actually turn into the actual little flowers on them stems, They're not open yet.
Yep. They just start on the lowest portion, just started.
Yeah.
Those opening up right now.
So that's usually 4 or 5 days yet. And this cold snap's going to set it back a little bit. It's supposed to be cold for a couple of days before it starts warming back up. So it is what it is. That's part of being in the livestock business, whether that be cows or bees or goats, whatever it is. You have to roll with the flow.
So, Melissa, Tom was saying, "Oh, Brad, come in here and talk to me about pallets." I come in here, he leaves.
Well, so I was making dinner, and I just got done making dinner. So he went to grab himself a hamburger.
I'll be back in 3 minutes.
So he's gonna inhale that real quick, and he'll be right back. But he's sitting right here beside me off camera. So
that's people that never eat, Brad, or never eat.
Well, I was eating. So in a nutshell, what do you want to know? Like in 400 words or less, what do you want to
know? Pros, cons, all the fine details that you have understood by using two-way pallets. I don't know. Give me
the worst thing about a two-way pallet is you can't lift it, and the best thing about a two-way pallet is you can't lift it.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't with the machine.
If you run a single bottom board, there's going to be a day when you look at that hive and think, I got to move that thing, and that's kind of heavy, but I think I'm just going to lift that. You never think that with two-way pallet. You need some kind of a thing. Yeah, we're talking about W clips. I've never used them, so I can't really advise you. But I just wanted to bring up the fact that you have that option, and I don't think it would affect the dimensions of your pallet in a dramatic way, because it would only be, a quarter of an inch or 3/8 of an inch on each side difference in width. If you went from that to a U clip. Yeah, I really like them, especially if you're using those 6-frame nukes. Those are great because they, single bottom board, it keeps everything nice and flat so that you can add 10-frame boxes above it. Now you say you're going to run 8 frames, so that might not be a thing, but I'm just talking from my experience. It's nice. I think it saves you a little money to have a bottom board and a rudimentary stand integrated like that. Saves on material. They're light and easy to move around when they're empty.
Who did you say you were talking to that kind of made you think about this?
So I was talking with Dennis Cruz.
All right, I'm going to stop you there.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop him there because if there's any ladies on the chat listening, I have told him this for the last few years that it would be more convenient if we did two-way pallets.
Here we go, fellas.
But of course, this idea didn't occur to him until somebody else came up with the idea and mentioned it to him.
Okay, I think
I just want to put
Dennis,
years ago.
I think Dennis has a tractor like mine, so
he does.
He's kind of set up that way too.
That's right.
Do you have anything like that?
Well, I mean, I have a very large Bobcat, but it's not. I mean, you're talking about a 7,000 pound, 8,000 pound machine.
You're not going to thread a needle with that thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very good on it, but that's not my intention to use that. My intention is Bobcat or many other ones sell a mini track loader, which is, they'll pick as much as 1,000. Yeah, thanks, Paul. I didn't need you to type that, but no thanks. So yeah. So my excuse would be I would buy one of those. I use it for my landscaping company, and then I also supplement on moving hives with that. But I can see if I got a nice deck over trailer, I could load hives onto it and load the mini track loader machine on the same trailer and move everything.
Paul, that was more of a, I have this idea. And he's like, no, that's not going to work. But then somebody else mentions it and that's a great idea.
It is not even like that, folks. We're going to have a session here real quick, okay? It is not even like that. Her version and the correct version stands right here. Right here, okay?
Well, Highland agrees with me, so go back to eating your burger.
Oh, my gosh. I'm going to finish.
Tom, I saw a sign today that made real good sense.
Uh-oh.
Don't make fun of your wife's choices because you were one of them.
You were one of them, yeah.
True story, my friend. I'm still listening here off to the side, but I'm going to finish my sandwich, and I don't feel right eating here on with everybody else. So I'll sit right here and listen.
I told my wife the other day to embrace her mistakes, and she gave me a hug.
It's real here tonight, fellas.
Yeah, he's sorry he asked me to come sit over here now.
I'll be honest, I might I can't believe I'm even saying this, but might start going to some individual bottom boards on some colonies, or maybe even a progressive changeover here as I age.
Well, here was my reason for wanting to do it before Dennis gave him the idea.
I never even heard you say you wanted to do it. What are you talking about?
Was because right now all of our hives are on stands, right? And there could be like 5 or 6, 7 on a stand. And for me, like my back and my hips bother me often. So when you're looking in a hive, you're always twisting like this and picking frames up. And that really, after a while, it's not really the most.
I don't know why I see so many people want to manage hives from the back all the time. That's got to be the worst thing ever to try to do.
Or on the
It
when
is.
they're on
That's
stands like
it's a
that,
bad
you don't have a
design.
choice. When they're on stands like that, you don't have a choice because you can't
Yeah.
get to the side of them, right?
Well,
So
change
I
it.
told him. Well, that's what I told him.
And you know what? The change in that can be as easy as a bottom board.
Yeah.
Rebuild your bottom board to go the other way and have
Well, no,
have the
you
entrance
have
on the
to
wide
use-
end, the
you can
wide
only
side.
have like 2 hives next to each other, so you could get on the sides of them.
No. What I'm saying is, turn your hive 90 degrees and build a different bottom board so that the front of the hive is on the wide side, not the narrow side.
Like
And
the-
then your frames will be parallel with the back of the hive, so you can manage it in
I
comfort.
see what you're saying. I see what you're
Right?
saying. Yep.
Yeah, as simple as that, really.
Yeah, because like the hives in Europe and the UK, they're more square. So
They are square.
they are
Yeah.
they go
National
square.
hives.
Yeah.
See, this is my theory. Everybody seems to use these same kind of stands that you see, and I'm not sure, but it seems to me like a lot of this stuff just is YouTube momentum, because everybody wants to set up all their hives in some kind of a stage so that they can put their camera into this is how I do my bees, right? And they go down the line and they manage all their bees, because nobody manages bees on stands like that. That's not either doing YouTube or getting their tips from YouTube. They see YouTube, look, this guy's got a stand like that. I should build one of those, right? And it just kind of gets momentum. Whereas if there's beekeepers, sideliners, and commercial beekeepers and stuff, nobody uses stuff like that.
Yeah. But even in
It's
clubs,
a pallet.
yeah. Even in clubs, when they're telling you how to set up they usually tell you to set up hive stands similar
Yeah.
to what we've got going on. So that's kind of where
2 hives and a hive stand.
yeah, 2 hive
But
whatever.
you could either turn it, or you could do
Right.
a two hive stand, so you can manage it from the side.
Right.
Because and I don't know if it's apparent on my management videos looking at what I'm doing, right? I set a super on the ground and I sit on it, open up the hive, and I'm going through this thing like a book, right?
Mhm.
Super easy. And I don't know if that kind of turns on any light bulbs for anybody to say, hey, look how easy that is for this guy to manage these hives. 'Cause I see people doing that. It's kind of like, let's take this frame out, and
It is.
thinking,
And
man,
when
that's
you've
going to
got
be the most uncomfortable thing.
right. When we have a yard with like 40 hives like that, by the end of the day, I'm like, oh my gosh, my back's done.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard to keep those
Change.
the sidebars from hitting the front of the hive as you're reaping. You got to reap
Uh-huh.
perfectly level.
Yeah, if you're pulling a heavy honey frame out of there or something.
That's what I was just gonna say. Yeah, you
It
get
easy.
that heavy honey frame, or it's stuck somehow with, it's the worst.
You try not to, but yeah, working it from the back has its disadvantages for sure.
So yeah, I'm all for moving to 2-way pallets.
You have to buy a $30,000 machine though.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's all it takes. Or rebuild your bottom board. So you choose. New tractor.
Tom's buying the machine.
Yeah. I'm always bucking for a new tractor too.
I can use it for landscaping, Brad.
Yeah. I don't have
I got
that
a guy.
excuse.
It's a friend of mine, and he made, like you said, Brad. He's made bottom boards. That's actually considered the warm way, as they call it.
That's what they call it. Yeah. The one way.
And he's got it cocked around, like you say. The frames are going this way, and I think he's kind of like he took the idea from Mr. Ed, where the landing board has like a dip underneath of it to where the bees go underneath the board or the side of the. There's not actually a hole or 3/4 inch strip or anything, and I think that's how he's got it done. But he's been doing that for about, I don't know, 10 years, something like that.
I think, doesn't Lawrence over in England or wherever Lawrence is at, doesn't he have some hives that the bees come in from the underneath? Was that him? Does anybody know? I swear I saw a video with him having some hives that they actually enter it from the underneath and not actually from the front.
I think Mr. Ed's got it where it's like a slot where they actually can crawl underneath the side of the box. It actually, instead of having a rim around there.
Right.
Does he trap pollen ever?
Who? Mr. Ed, or
No, I don't
No.
think so.
Okay. Because some pollen traps are like that. You switch them and they'll go like this, and then they'll go a different
Mhm.
way. So I was just wondering if that was an integrated pollen trap.
No, he just puts his little entrances on each corner, and
Okay.
they have to kind of go down in there to get to it.
Well,
Well,
that's my recommendation anyway.
Are you moving hives, Melissa?
am I moving hives?
I mean, are you moving them a lot or not? Are they
No, we don't move hives that often. I know Tom's interested in maybe doing some local pollination, like apple orchards and things like that. So that would really be the only time that we're moving hives. The only other time we move hives is if we have a yard on property that gets sold or, stuff like that, and we need to move them to another property. But for the most part, where our hives are is where they stay. Other than nukes, we'll move nukes. When we're making nukes, we move them to this yard, then move them out when they grow up to a different yard. But those are easy to move.
Yeah, JW, you keep all yours on individual stands, don't you?
Yep.
Yeah, I can see advantages to that, as well.
Well, it's like mine there. I got them.
2,000 on individual stands, but 50 or 70, that's not that big a deal. I like the separation.
Mm-hmm.
With mine, I made them so originally I wanted a space between the two highs so I could put my bottom boards or lids down and try to keep my supers, not having to bend over as far. But I can go on each side of those hives and work them from the side and all that. But now I got the hive lifter. I don't really have to, if I'm getting down in the deep, I just lift everything up with that. It works out great. Sold 2 more this week, Brad.
2 more
hive lifters. I got one.
You selling hive lifters for Boris now?
I don't know.
They done?
Yeah. Person down in Virginia, I was at a class that I was help teach. They bought one this week. I had another guy up in Pennsylvania. It's about an hour and a half from north of me. Has ordered one too.
Nice.
So Boris is bringing in the money.
They giving you any commissions or anything?
Start putting Charlie 10 on the promotion.
That's right. Yeah.
I know Boris well enough to know the answer to that.
Yeah. Yeah, we had talked about those hive lifters before, but none of our yards would be a good candidate for using one of those because I think you have to have fairly flat ground to use those.
Yeah,
would get out of hand pretty easily. Yeah.
Yeah, so it wouldn't even be a contender for anything we've got going on.
Mine, mine's a good unit. It's stout. It's a very stout unit. Although I noticed that one of the welds broke, I got to re-weld it. But it'll carry a lot of weight, and you really got to mind. You got to get under it. It's not some people will ask me about it, and they want to come and try it or something. I'll tell them that it makes the lifting part not an issue, but that's all. The rest of it is still challenging. You still really got to put your effort into it to keep it from flopping over or something, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I enjoy mine. It really does take a lot of pressure off my back and shoulders and stuff.
Absolutely.
And especially, and like I said in my videos last summer, when you can lift up 2 or 3 boxes at one time as a unit, you interrupt or upset the bees where you split the boxes, but the rest of the bees are up into those 3 sets of boxes on the lifter.
Yeah.
They don't even know they've been
They're
moved.
oblivious. Yeah.
They're oblivious of what's going on. It just makes that so much easier.
Yeah. Escape setting is one of the handiest times for my lifter. Go up to that stack and just lift that few inches and slide that escape in and set it down again.
Mhm.
That's so easy compared to the old way. Boy, before I had a lifter, I used to invite a buddy over and we'd have to take all of the boxes off and then put them all back on.
Yeah, and that's like me doing
He's
my.
still your friend.
Yeah, he only helped me that one time, so I guess he doesn't want to do it anymore. He owed me a favor. He said, "What can I do for you?" I said, "I got a job."
Yeah,
That's the problem I have too.
They're not too bad for two guys on a deep full of honey is not that bad. So you're only lifting 30 pounds a piece.
I know, like just like going through my hives, they're mediums, but I'm taking that top medium off, which at that time in September was full of honey, and getting in there either pulling April bar strips out. I think it was Formic Pro at the time. I went there and pulled Formic Pro, and you do that, 16 times. And it gets to your back after a while. So you get up to about 8 of them and like, all right, I got to take a break or come back tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely.
I can't handle it,
Yeah.
And then, because you're usually picking it up and you're kind of slamming it down on the darn upside down lid there off in the middle of that rack because it's so darn heavy.
Yeah.
It makes it's a decent machine.
Yeah, with contracting work, I got to think about that. Everything that I'm going to pick up from a supplier, it's one time in the truck, one time out of the truck, and then another time to get it ready to cut or to get it ready to assemble or whatever we're doing with the product. So we're handling that 3 or 4 times, and beekeeping is much the same way. I'm, as far as getting everything out there and trying to pick it up as few time as possible is key, with the longevity of the day.
Yeah, when I started this, it went through a couple of years of my process, and then I did the math one year. How much honey do I lift in a year? And like me just manually lifting honey, at that time it was over 100,000 pounds of honey a year I would lift manually. That was plenty.
It's crazy.
Because if you produce 10,000 pounds and you lift it
Mm-hmm.
10 times, right? That's easy math. It doesn't take much to lift your honey 10 times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you can reduce that a little bit. Reduce that by 3 times. You've just not lifted 30,000 pounds, which is kind of sounds nice, right?
Do you use any barrels at all, Brad?
None.
Do you store any honey in barrels?
None.
Is Ian?
It's all 50-pound pails. Yeah, Ian does nothing but barrels.
How does what's a poor man's way to heat those barrels, or if you got crystallized honey in them, would be a
heat them?
fast, easy for a poor man's way to do that.
I've seen warming cabinets a lot like what I have, except they sit right on the floor, and you can just use your cart and roll the barrel into the warming cabinet and warm it up. Take you a while. Probably take, I don't know, could take a couple of weeks.
Doesn't what's his name that did the cut cone class?
Gus Mitchell.
Gus Mitchell, thank you. Doesn't he have a video on melting down a barrel, and he had some sort of heater coil that he puts in it?
You can get those. Yeah. They're really
it looks
expensive.
like a mashed potato masher.
Yeah. They're really expensive.
Are they?
It's about $900,000.
Yeah, they're real expensive.
Kind of reminds me of what we'd put in the horse trough to keep it from freezing.
Yep, it's exactly what it is, but it's meant for food.
Well, it reminded me of a hot water heater element, only bigger.
Yep.
Well, I've got some of those from my old stock tanks. I'll just use one of them.
There you go. Just sanitize it. It'll be all good.
Yeah.
Boil it right up.
Honey's antimicrobial. It'll be all right.
Yeah, it'll clean it.
That's coming from a guy who kisses cows on the lips.
Yeah, Roy says use band heaters on
I'm
barrels.
looking for a cheapy way. I don't want to buy nothing. I'm trying to come up with a cheap idea.
Just a box. The box, it really doesn't cost you much. My cabinet that I have now, I built that out of scrap lumber.
Yeah.
And it's not a thing of beauty, but sure works nice. So you could easily build a box like that, inch of styrofoam. It's not really that hot in there, so you don't need that much insulation. Inch of styrofoam and a door, and just I think the worst part about trying to build something like that would be, I think you should probably insulate the floor, because if you just had it on a cement floor and you put the barrel in there, it might have a hard time warming that part.
You might have to buy one of them barrel blankets.
Mark Miller said just get an electric blanket.
Electric blanket. I've got a couple of them and I never use, so that might be.
So you could get a bee blanket for a barrel, but it'll cost you nearly $1,000. Like I say, just a box, just insulated box.
Or make a tank around your barrel with water in it and heat the water up.
I can do that.
Yeah, just lift that barrel up and put it in that tank.
Yeah, that's all you got to do.
Just like that.
He's got a tractor and a front end loader.
Do you have one of those barrel gripper thingies for your tractor like
No
Tom
problem
has
on
for the
lifting
skid
it.
steer?
I got stuff that'll lift it. That's no problem. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about being a cheapie.
Well, you've got Tom and Matt coming over this week. Have them build you something.
Or better yet, forget about the barrels. Just get yourself a milk tank and just put all the honey in the milk tank, and then reverse the coil mechanism and make it a heater instead of a cooler.
Well, honestly, that's why I have 5 gallon pails. Right, I put 50 pounds in a pail, and again, the downside of that is I can lift them, and I often do, which really I shouldn't be. I do try to set up my system so that they're all on the little pallets and I don't have to lift them, but it always turns out that I have to lift them anyway. But, at least I have certain things like loading and unloading my cabinet. I do that with my tractor. Usually, sometimes I do that by hand, which sucks. But sometimes it's kind of like, am I just going to do this or am I going to go get the tractor?
And then when you're hurting that night, I wish I'd have got.
You think I wish I should have got the tractor. That's exactly it. Because I often do. I'll be working thinking, why am I so sore today? And then I think, oh yeah, I loaded the cabinet by hand yesterday. It doesn't take much. 600 pounds of honey, and you feel it.
He's back to defend himself.
A barrel of 660 is what it is. If you get 55 or 55 gallon drum at 12 pounds, that's 660.
Yeah, and again, the nice thing is you can't lift that. So you need to be smart like tractor.
Well, I guess I'll just take a hand axe to it and cut it out and use a weed burner or something on it. Barrel. I heat it up.
Get a Herman Nelson blowing on it.
Got an old flamethrower. I got a weed burner that I used to squish my Hive boxes with, before I dip them.
You could probably just get Mr. Ed to ship his to you for a loan out for a little while and then ship it back to you. His drum warmer.
I didn't notice what he had down there, Joey, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah, he's got one of those drum blankets.
So
I don't have the Catholic Church behind me. He's got the Catholic Church behind him back there. He's supply his with his money. All I've got is Tom Sauceman and Matt Wormbottoms that furnish my money, so they kind of limit me out.
Yeah, that's having JW shop at Goodwill. On our phone.
Somebody had down near Matt, and I think in Hillsboro had a couple of those 55-gallon drum bee blankets for sale.
Really?
For pretty cheap. I looked on Marketplace again, and they're not there. That was probably a couple months back, and I almost actually bought one just to have one hanging around in case I thought I would use it. Cause I think he was only asking like $100 a piece. And like Brad said, I think they run like $800 for
the one for the 5-gallon pail is about $250.
It's a little bit cheaper here, but because I have one of those.
I do too.
And they work well.
Yeah, it works.
Okay.
The nice thing about it is it's not harsh. It doesn't. You won't ruin your honey with it.
Yeah.
But the downside is sometimes, like if I'm going to try and do a pail, I'll wrap the whole thing in a bunch of towels or something to keep the heat in. But I don't ever worry about it ruining the honey.
Yeah, I think they only hit 100 or 104. If I
I'm not
remember
sure what it's set
correctly.
at. I have a band heater too. It's just a metal band that goes around, and it
Mhm.
says right on the instructions, it says, "Do not leave this thing unattended."
Yeah.
And I did one time, and it melted right through the pail.
There's a couple guys in the club here that come a hair of melting the darn thing, the bucket. Of melting that plastic bucket with that thing.
Yeah. I think
But
you're right, though, Brad, when you're talking about putting something underneath, whether it be the drum or the pail, because I noticed with the bee blanket that I've been using for the last couple of years on my 5-gallon pails, it'll uncrystallize most of it, but there's always the bottom in the center that it doesn't touch. So that's the cold part that doesn't quite absorb the heat.
And Brad, do you feel like when you're putting those blanket or the heating element on it, it's almost kind of circulating the heat throughout the container, like slowly?
It doesn't convect very well, I don't think. Honey, because Tom's right.
The outside.
Well, it's dense, so it conducts heat pretty good. But I don't think there's much convection in it. So I don't think it stirs like water would. But because that's right. If there'll be some granulation on the bottom that you'll never get. In my cabinet, I have good airflow. I have fans circulating the air up and back down into the heater. And then there's the honey all sits on pallets, so that it's slatted. And so there's not just a solid area for it to sit. The air can flow right up past the bottom of the pails. And it works pretty darn good. I'm very pleased with the way it works.
And that's just the incandescent bulbs that you have in that cabinet?
Yeah.
The video?
Yeah, it'll take about 500 watts. I've got it set up for 600 watts. And I know if one of those burns out, it struggles. If two of them burns out, it won't come up to temperature. Like if one burns out, I might not notice because it's still working. But if two burn out, then it doesn't come up to where it should be.
Might just be listening.
Why are you looking for a warming cabinet, Matt?
Yeah, JW actually dropped off a couple of coolers, like Coke cooler, to like one of those true coolers like Joey's got in his beautiful honey house.
I took a refrigerator and I could only put 3 buckets in there. And I had that little where you used to put your meat in, that drawer. It's got that little glass tray in there. Anyway, I get I think it's 100-watt heat lamp, just the white one, not the red. And I put that Inkbird controller on it. And I keep it about 115 degrees in the environment, along with a fan to move that air around. And it keeps I try not to let the buckets crystallize, but I mean, some of them have, where they might be sitting for 4 to 5 months, but they'll sit in there for several weeks. And when I get ready to pour it into my bottling tank, they're definitely liquid. And I tried to cut the heat back, and like 105 when then I went to like 108. And what I found is like you say, on the bottom of the bucket, if it's a little cooler, let's say 105, Then there's a 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch scum of honey that's not liquefied. I keep it at 115. It's liquefied. It drains well and all that. Even at 108, it was closer to liquefy, but not completely. And it works good for me. And I found I used to just have the lamp in there. And of course, heat rises. And I had a bucket on top of a bucket. Well, the one up on top of the bucket was perfect. The ones that were sitting down on the bottom of the refrigerator, they still are a little bit more thick, I'll say. So when I put that little fan in there running constantly to move the air around, that it seemed to solve the problem and everything.
Todd
Even
asked
out
a
all the-
question there. Todd asked a question about controllers. No, I use a Johnson Controls A419 or A421. I like the 419, but it's a little bit older and it's harder to find. So normally I have to use a 421. That's what I have on my cabinet right now. It's more of an industrial product, and I find it's a lot more reliable. But it's less plug and play. You have to wire it yourself. You have to wire the plugs and stuff on it yourself. So it's actually exactly, a little bit of trivia, exactly the controller that's on my wax melter.
Brad, does that device that you're using keep the tolerance a little tighter than you might get with a no-name brand or a Chinese version of that?
I've never calibrated anything.
No? Okay.
I don't know. You can set it with a 1 degree margin, but yeah, how exacting it is, I really can't say. I'm under the impression that it's very accurate, but but then again, they're $150. Inkbirds are going to run for a lot less than that. So
yeah,
I will share my story. I started out with an Inkbird and it burnt too much honey on me, so they even sent me a second one because it wasn't working properly, and that one didn't work any better. So I was kind of shy after that. They're a nice system, very plug and play and whatnot, but I just had a bad experience with it.
Yeah, honey is expensive compared to something of what you're talking about. So
yeah, blow up $500 with the honey. You kind of think
should have spent $400 on the other device, right?
Well, yeah, $150 for an industrial controller, or so that was just my experience. I know a lot of people use them successfully, though.
Yeah, I've heard the same.
They're nice because I've been doing electronics since I was a little kid, and so it's not an issue to wire it up, but a lot of people wouldn't want to do that, so I totally get that.
Yeah, sometimes plug and play is very easy, and it's foolproof for somebody who's not advanced in that.
I like the fact that, like, when I made my own, when I had the Inkbird, my very first cabinet that I built, it would turn the heater and the fan on and off at the same time, and I found that wasn't probably the best idea, because when the light bulbs turn off, they're still hot, right? So I want the fan to keep moving the air around the cabinet. And so then when I made my new cabinet, I separated those circuits, and when you turn the cabinet on, the fan starts, so it runs 100% of the time.
That's what
and then
mine.
the controller just turns the lights on and off. Yeah,
that's what mine does. Yeah, I just go over there and you plug it in.
Yeah,
it stays on, runs. Yeah. Something simple for me.
No, we ain't going there.
We'll get to hear some singing this weekend.
Looks like Roy had a similar bad experience too. 4 or 5 gallon pails. His Inkbird failed. Not too bad.
Hey, I have a question for you guys. I had a young man that was in middle part of Missouri call me and ask me a bunch of questions about our growth and our honeybee operation and what his aspirations are. And we talked about a lot of different things, but kind of changing the subject just a little bit. There's a lot of experience right here in this chat. What would be, I don't know, 2 or 3 things that you would give, tidbits of information that you would give to a young or aspiring beekeeper that might want to take it business to a heavy sideliner and potentially in the future, maybe even beyond? Any words of wisdom that you all can come up with?
Don't.
I think he watches the chat sometimes.
Well,
have they kept bees before ever?
I think he's only been in it now for 3 years. He was actually at the EMBA workshop and messaged me tonight and asked if he could call, and I said absolutely. So we spoke for about an hour or so on the phone. He told me what he was looking to do and stuff, but
well, it's a good way to make a bit of money with beekeeping. Let's start with more money.
I figured that was going to come up.
Want to make $1 million? Just start with 2. You're good.
I was expecting that answer to come out of JW, Brad. And he's
wise people think alike, don't they, Bradley?
Yeah.
Wise minds
shared wisdom.
Same.
That's experience. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I got any. I don't know if I should share any wisdom there because of.
Oh yeah, I mean the good, bad. It happens. I mean that's
This might not be the best time in the world to think about expanding too much. I don't know.
You got to sucker somebody into working for you for nothing.
Back here from California, so he wasn't very optimistic about what's going on.
I think you got to sucker somebody into working for you for nothing. If you got a child or a spouse or somebody you can get to work for you for nothing, because I just feel that there's one person trying to do this, you just come up short too much. Like, for example, my own story is I worked at this for, I don't know, the first 3 years or so. And this is my 10th season coming up, just for context. So for about 3 years, I worked at this. We did markets, and I went and visited a bunch of stores and got my product in stores and got a good clientele going. And I got a really good, volume of honey going out now. But for the last 6-7 years, I haven't been able to expand on that, right? Because I don't buy honey. I produce a kind of a bit of a specialty honey, and even if I wanted to buy honey, it might be hard to find. I'm sure it would be hard to find. So there's that. So if you're just going to sell the honey you have, me as one person, just can't produce lots of honey. And I could, if I spent the last 7 years trying to build my market share, I could be selling 50,000 pounds of honey a year, but I can't produce 50,000 pounds. So that's difficult. And it gets to a point where, you kind of have to take that next step and hire a person. Well, now you're paying a wage and a whole bunch of other complexity, because there's a lot of complexity in having employees, regulations and paperwork and government intervention and all this sort of thing. This guy needs attention. He's been here the whole time. You just couldn't see him. So then, if you get another person, you think, oh, I can do twice as much work. Well, it doesn't work that way, because anybody working for you is not going to work as hard as you work at your own business and be as productive.
100%.
And they don't know your business. It's not that they're lazy. It's just that they don't know your business like you do.
That's
and
right.
They're not as invested. So you're not going to get twice the production, I don't think. And then plus you have to use half of their production to pay for their wage. So it's not just, it's not linear.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. I can tell you this, when him and I were talking, I asked him what his goals were and what he wanted to look at, 5 years, 10 years. And so far he's only been in it a few years, and he has basically doubled in size, which starting off with only a couple has not been much at this point. But the one thing he said to me, which I was glad to hear him say, and it's kind of what Bob Betty talks about a little bit. He said, invest in the equipment, not the bees, meaning don't go out and get a loan for bees.
Don't borrow money for bees. That is the best advice.
Yeah. Well, he's doing all this debt free, which I'm like, if I was going to do it, I'm like, that's 100% how I've done it. I zero debt when it comes to any beekeeping operation that we have. But, Brad, like you said, it is very labor intensive, and there are certain things that you can do to help create efficiencies. But at the end of the day, it's very labor intensive.
If you're 30 years old and you've got a business plan and you need to buy a $30,000 extracting line for that, go ahead and do that. But don't borrow money for that.
Yeah.
Because it's a capital cost. It depreciates over time, and you pay it off over time.
Right.
But don't borrow money for bees. Bees die. You'll spend thousands of dollars in debt on bees, and then the bees die, and then you've got nothing but debt.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And bee math is a dangerous thing.
For sure.
Almost all beekeepers get into it. They get 5 hives, and they go through the first year, and then they split those, and they have 10, and they say, "Wow, I can."
Bee math is the same color as this cup right here.
Yeah, that's right. And they say, "Wow, I got 10 hives now. Well, if I split them again next year, I'll have 20, and then the next year I'll have 40, and then 80, and then in 4 years they've got 200 hives, right? Well, year 2, year 3, then their bees start dying, and they don't know why, and they don't winter so well, and then they have a huge loss, and then bee math doesn't work like that, right? We all know that. You can split bees, but they're just going to die, and that's the brutal truth.
The biggest thing
it's a lot of fun
is if he's going to get towards that sideliner / commercial, he needs to make a decision early on, palletized. That way you don't have bottom boards and, migratory lids versus inner covers and telly covers. And, it's less, you've not wasted all that money for all that equipment.
Well, yeah, I agree, Charlie. Consider your equipment and whatnot early on, because once you get into a system, you have 500 hives and you think, gee, I wish I had migratory covers instead of telescoping covers. You think, yeah, but it's 500 covers. I don't think I want to do that.
That's right.
Every time I pick up a medium super, I think, oh, I want to go to all mediums. And then I do the math. Well, it's only going to cost me $15,000 to replace all my frames and boxes. I think I'll stick with the mediums.
My suggestion to a young guy starting out, whether it be young or old, anybody starting out, is go out here and look at 3 or 4 operations and pick you out what style of boxes and excuse me, fellas, what style of boxes and stuff that you want. Would that be 8 frames, 10s, or what? And get consistent. Where a lot of people tie up a lot of money, including me over the years, is not being consistent with the type of boxes you have. I've got 5s, I got 8s, I got 10s, I got 7s, and it takes a lot more money to feed that animal when they're all different sizes and they're dead.
I mean, I started
whatever.
Standardized.
Like everybody, I started out with double deeps, and I had about 4. I guess it was about 4 hives. And I'm like, I'm trying to pick up that top hive off. That's 10 years ago or more. And it's like, it felt like 100 pounds. I'm like, we can't do this. And that's when I started going into mediums. And that's where I stayed.
Use what everybody else uses. Industry standard, easy to find, And I know people talk about 8 frames, and I think there's a lot of advantages, but find an 8-frame queen excluder, right? You'll find 100 10-frame queen excluders before you find an 8-framer, right? Just stuff like that. Standardization. And I know a lot of American commercial beekeepers use mediums, but it's tough to find somebody in Canada using a medium. Just all deeps. And
Yeah,
boy, is
for
it ever
sure.
nice using all deeps. I was kind of
Been
kidding in
going
the
to
chat
Edison,
earlier.
it
I was,
was all mediums.
I was
You know, you
kidding
tell
in the chat about somebody said, how do I cull, brood comb? And I said, well, just put it in honey super and extract it, you know, because I kind of forget that. I forget that that's not an option for everybody. And it's just an illustration of, yeah, but I want mediums. So how bad do you want mediums? Because they're a pain. Having run all deeps, yeah, mediums are a pain because
Mhm.
there's just certain things you can't do. It's like, they can't do that because it's a medium.
I would say it would depend upon where you're at in your stage of life too. If you have a lot of gray hair, you're probably going to view things a little differently. And like you said, work on mediums. But if you're a young guy who has more back than anything, you're going to look at how can I be more efficient, but understanding you're going to tear up your body a little bit until you can get some equipment.
Look at Ian's operation though. Ian's operation is designed specifically so nobody lifts a full box.
Yeah.
You lift empty supers when you put them on the hive, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody lifts a full box. Full box is never lifted.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that's
somebody's probably not going to start out with that though. Unfortunately, that's a big chunk to break off there with that.
You don't have to use an easy loader to do that either. Hive lifter like Charlie has, like I have. You don't lift those boxes. I don't lift them. Machine lifts them off and puts them on the pallet, and then my tractor lifts them and either puts them on the trailer or takes them in the honey house. I don't lift them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Ian's got a nice lifter in his honey house where he lifts them off the pallet and puts them on the rollway for the uncapper. So they literally don't ever lift a full super.
Yeah.
So you can do it, but you need to, so you have to, even again, if you're lifting mediums, it's the same thing because they're still heavy. And if you lift 1,000 of them,
mm-hmm.
right, the same thing.
But I mean, talking about buying equipment, I mean, if you got it to the point where, you do reach a point where if you got good honey sales and nuke sales, you are bringing money in. You can make money. And, the only thing of it is you're not going to make you better have that day job in order to take that money that you made and then reinvest it into your business.
Yeah, I would say if you're growing organically like that or doubling in size each year, you're going to have plenty of years where you're not going to have a paycheck. And that's going to be several because you're going to be buying a lot of equipment. Even if you're just making
it's like any
colonies and you're not buying queens, you're rearing your own queens, you still have an equipment cost there.
Yeah.
And,
I figured it took me at least 5 years, like most normal business plans, to break even.
Yeah.
Because you're buying boxes. If you're going to expand, that means more boxes. That means more frames. You're going to, if you made $10,000 gross, you're going to spend at least half of that.
Yeah.
And
let me ask you a question, Charlie. How many hives do you have back there? Like 20 something?
28 right now. Well, I mean, I have enough room for 28.
Yeah. And that's good if you're just wanting to supplement or you're looking for a hobby that's paying for itself. But there is no way that I can figure out that anybody, and I'm not calling you out. I'm just saying, just realistically, there's no way that anybody with 28 hives is going to make a living with that. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, no.
I can't even figure out how you'd make a living with a couple hundred hives, at least not the living that I would want. I mean, you'd have to be like Brad said, B math doesn't work out. If you think that, if you could count on that you're not going to lose any colonies whatsoever and you're going to have a consistent growth, that could work. But that's completely unrealistic. Look at what we're kind of experiencing here this year with some of these commercial operators having losses that are in the millions. So, that changes the game just a little bit when we're talking about agriculture.
And I have to put things in context too. When I was 30 years old, I was working 16-hour days as well, right? Not today.
Yeah.
Not today, right? So
Sure.
I'm not getting as much work done in a day as I could when I was 30 years old.
Yeah.
And I've come to the realization that when I was in my 20s, the option was always there when you came up to a big challenge to just say, I'll just work harder, right? Because you could.
Mm-hmm.
You could just say, I'm going to just put my nose to the grindstone for this month and just hit it hard, go really hard, and abuse my body
Mm-hmm.
and do it and get the job done.
That's right.
That's not an option in your 50s, 60s.
No.
That's not
Yeah.
an option.
You start to lose steam when you get a little older. I get it.
Yeah.
That's very realistic. I guess the idea would be you would grow.
And the
if that's what
price, you
do.
pay the price so much harder.
Oh yeah,
when
100%.
you do push yourself like that. So I was going to throw into equipment. I said, well, go ahead and buy that $60,000 or the $30,000 extracting line, and you don't really have to either, because specifically extractors, those things don't lose value, right?
Yeah.
You could buy yourself a 20 frame extractor, use it for 2 years, sell it for as much as you paid for it. Buy yourself a 30 frame or a 40 frame, use that for 2 or 3 years, and then sell it for what you paid for it.
I've done that since I started. I've grown it, and I've never lost any. Well, there's one guy I sold to, lost a little bit of money up in that corner over here.
But I mean, and thereabouts, right? Yeah, right.
That's right.
And thereabouts, right? You may not make money all the time, but you're not going to lose a whole lot either.
Yeah.
So even if you if you spend $2,000 on an extractor and you keep it for 3 years, and you sell it for $1,800, you're still going to lose less money on that than you are paying interest on a $30,000 extractor you don't really need. That you're not using capacity of, is what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I like what Michael Buck here says. Said you can buy a packing house and sell other people's money if you wanted business. Hives would make a front. I mean, there's people that do this, right?
Bob Binney.
And you wouldn't have to work nearly as hard.
Yep. Bob Binney, I think, is the poster child for that.
100%, yeah.
Yep.
Well, I don't know this person who I don't know that this person who I was talking with has the aspiration to go in commercial. He didn't say that. He was just looking to grow his small operation to a little bit larger one. So he didn't say, and I didn't ask, but somebody else mentioned in here too, said build a plan. And that's exactly what I told him. I said, well, you need to have a goal. You need to figure out what you're wanting out of it. Make a goal, set up maybe a 1-year plan, set up a 5-year and a 10-year, and then start working toward each one of those goals as your time progresses along. And you're going to have some hiccups. You may not meet every goal, but you can reassess and then, redraw.
You can figure out what you want to do with your time too, right? Like for example, I'll use Ian and I. Ian and I have a very similar but very different business model, and so he's not doing honey business in the winter, right? He'll get everything will go out of there in a semi in the fall, and then he's not working the business until April, let's say. Now he's got lots to do, right? I'm not saying he's sitting around, but that's his time off almost, because he works like a dog all summer. Boy, that boy works hard. Now I have a different model, right? I'm working my business all winter, and I'm trying to fit woodshop in too, because it is not as busy, but I try to stay busy by, serving my customers and stores and whatnot. And if I wanted to take that to the next level, then I might start to develop some specialty products. People make all kinds of things out of bee products, whether it's royal jelly or whether it's beeswax wraps or candles or skin creams. You know what I mean? All of the things you can make with products from the beehive.
The value-added items.
The value-added items. And so you can do that. And so you can use your time to do that. And that's a lot of time to do all of that.
Oh, yeah.
You look at what Brian Zaveda does. He's got all the flavored honeys, and I think they do a lot of candles and stuff. So they're doing a lot of value-added specialty items. So he can take, what Ian might sell in a barrel for, I don't even know what barrel prices are. Let's say $2.50 for a pound, and I put it in a jar and I'm fetching 4, right? Um, Brian may cream that and flavor it and fetch 10 or 15, right? So you can make more money for that pound of honey, but you're also going to work for it. But
That's right.
you've got to evaluate that. Is that worth your time
Yep.
to do that? I would rather make things in the wood shop than fuss around making flavored honeys. That's just me.
Yeah. Well, we did something similar to that on a much smaller scale of what you're referring to right there. So Melissa and I were making our own honey straws. We'd crimp the ends, put them in a machine that was basically a centrifuge, dump the honey in the center, and it would sling it out. And you take those, you recrimp the other ends, wash them up, and then from there you could package them and sell them or what have you. We found a company that'll do that for us, and I still get to make 80% profit on it. And all I have to do is ship the buckets somewhere, let them package them, label them with my own logo and stuff, and send them right back to me. So I haven't taken I'm still 100% my product. The only difference is I didn't package that myself. So there's a huge difference there as far as I can still claim everything sitting on my table as something that is from our highs and have dealt with that. But again, now I don't have to put the time and effort into doing that. And I still make a really great value add on that one particular product there, so I've saved a little time, still making the profit I need to off of it. But like you said, you can take a small crop and turn it into a much larger income. But you're going to have to put some time toward it. Or you can take and work your tail off to produce this raw crop, sell it for a lesser amount, but you wipe your hands of it like this, and you can move on to something else, take a vacation, work on other farm stuff, whatever that might be.
And again, to draw differences between what Ian's doing and what I'm doing, is I referenced earlier that I'm producing a little bit of a specialty honey. So I need to fetch $4 a pound.
Yeah.
Because for, a reasonable crop for Ian is, I don't even know, but I think it's, 250 pounds on a colony kind of thing. A good crop for me is 130. Right. So it's half of what Ian's getting. So the fact that I'm getting less than twice as much a pound for mine, I'm still making way less money than he is on a colony of bees with the same inputs.
Yeah.
So if you don't have good locations, that can make or break your business. And that's why I struggle so much, is because I stay in these locations that produce a lot less honey.
Yeah.
But I've always just tried to pursue that, and it's a tough road. It's a tough road. You have to find that customer. When they taste that honey, they say, this is different and this is what I love. But you also need to make them pay for it, because, if you're not making money, and I'm not saying you have to make money at everything, because if you just do it for the love of it, that's fine. And there's a lot to love about beekeeping, but it's my job. So I do have to make money. And if I'm not going to make money, I'm going to quit doing it and watch TV all day, because it's the same result economically. Right.
That's right.
But bees are so much fun. That's why I do it.
They are. I think it takes a special kind of person to enjoy, what it is that they offer too. Not everybody would have that same affection toward bees like most of us sitting right here inside these chats. So
the fact that I make a little bit on the honey allows me to justify wasting my time playing with bugs in the spring.
Yep. Well said.
I don't I get a little bit depressed in August. I go through May, June, July, and honey flow, and you get into August. And then about the third week in August, I start looking at those really tall stacks of honey, and I just stand there and I shake my head and I think, this damn thing again, I've got
Here we are.
2.5 months of hell coming up.
Yep.
And I just put my nose at a grindstone and look down and do it, because there ain't nobody else going to do it. Nobody else crazy enough.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. If you're wanting to make a ton of money, do it somewhere else other than beekeeping, right?
Yeah. If you want to make a ton of money, do something else.
Well, it's like,
I've told these young guys, and the local guys that asked me at my ripe young age, of course, I'm not old enough to know have all the answers yet, but you can make a hell of a lot more money with your brain than you can with your back. I can tell you that. I've
That's
told
right.
these young guys that.
The way I put it is
Time's
if
over.
if farmers did it for the money, the world would starve to death.
Yeah, that's
They
right.
do it for the love of it.
Yeah, some of them's doing it for the money now because it's pretty good income.
Well, maybe in your country. The story of my life is a Venn diagram. There's 3 circles, right? 3 circles. And there's one down here.
Yeah.
And there's things I enjoy, and there's things I'm good at, and there's things that make money. But they don't intersect. they're just 3 separate circles.
You'll get the hang of it.
I get the hang of it. I better soon.
Well, I love the bees. That's the reason I do it. I've had several different. I've retired 4 times, so I know a little bit about this retirement side of it.
Yeah, I've done a lot of different things for a
I
living in
don't
my
like
life too.
honey. I'm not crazy about bees, but I love being stung. So.
Yeah, I don't hate it so much. Except I get it in the palm of the hand. Boy, I get it in the palm of the hand. That'll
That
make me
hurts.
see stars. I'll see stars. Oh, that hurts.
No, I really enjoy the honeybees. That's where I do it for something that they.
Well, I think I like the bees, but I like the community where we're all in. I like the friendship.
Yeah,
that's a good part of it, also, Charles.
Now that you mention it, Charlie, I like the bees. I'm kidding.
Ouch! Oh my gosh, you guys killing us here. Hey,
love y'all.
Joey. Hey, Joey, can you knock that guy off of here? He's not being kind anymore.
You're out.
You hurt my feelings.
What's up, Big Mike?
Not much. Enjoying the day. Spent most of the day in the shop building stuff.
Are you done pushing snow?
What's that? We got a little one the other day. Wasn't enough to go out, but no, we still got plenty on the ground. A good foot or so.
Thankfully, ours is melting.
Oh, so is ours. Bees were flying today. Got to a little over 50, and tonight it's supposed to go down to 7. So much for flying for the next 4 or 5 days.
I won't be disappointed if I don't have to break out that equipment anymore this year. I cleaned up the stuff on my truck, changed the cutting edges on the plow and the wings, and did a couple of little maintenance items on them, and I took them off and put them on top of the containers, and my son has yet to finish up his truck and doing the maintenance that he needs on that. So we'll see. Hopefully spring is here for us in St. Louis.
We're down to 25 here. I just now looked.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see what that says.
I made 34, I think. The migratory covers, Brad.
Nice. In one day?
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Well, I have pretty fantastic genes. You know, I push them up against a fence and they run through by themselves.
Well, milling lumber, that's not bad, but assembly takes some time. I built 65 more of those little mini bases. Well, I put the feet on them today. That wasn't that much, I guess. I have to put the shims on them tomorrow.
Yeah, yesterday it seemed like I was forever putting the 40-gallon trash barrel at the end of the saw and just ripping and listening to it go clunk, 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 and then dump it out on the table, restack it all, push it through again in a different direction.
I thought I was the only one who did it that way.
No, I've been doing that for years.
My
Sometimes
garbage can is my
big
catcher.
job, I'll have 3 or 4 buckets over there, so we just keep grabbing them and putting them in.
You using your feeder?
No, I just push it through by hand.
Okay, yeah.
If I had my cabinet saw set up, I'd put a feeder on it.
Oh yeah.
But this is my sliding table saw.
Oh, okay.
So there really isn't a place for that.
Yeah, no, it's sliding.
You're forever cutting sheets of plywood, so you'd have to take it off.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Cut plywood on that. I muscled 4 sheets of 3/4 onto my saw this winter, and I thought I was going to die. I used to overhand those
That's
easy.
just
But
enough, isn't it?
what's that?
A 3/4 sheet is just awkward enough.
Oh yeah. Well, part of my problem is I was too stupid to actually reorganize my shop so I could do it the right way, and so I thought, it's just 4 sheets. I'll just muscle it on there like I was 40, right? When I was 40, I could throw those onto the roof of the house, but not now. I can hardly get them on my table saw.
I have a table that's tubular, and I have the wheels that go on the pipe staging, and it's just a little bit about the same height as my table saw. So when I come in the side door, I can slide the sheets from the truck onto that, wheel it right over the table saw, and just slide them onto that. So I don't ever have to pick them up.
My shop is so compact. I just don't have space. I bought a gadget, and here's something for somebody that's listening to this wanting a solution. I bought a gadget a few years ago, and it's what I should have been using, but like I say, I didn't clean my shop up enough to actually use it. It's called a leg up. You ever heard of leg up, Mike? It's just a thing that it hangs off the end of your table saw, and it's got a hook on the bottom of it, and it sits about that high from the floor. So you bring your sheet in, you set your sheet on this thing, and it literally allows you to just push it. You push the sheet, and it just flips right up onto the table saw. And it's amazing how easy it is.
Do you have a sheet dolly?
I don't think I'd be able to use one if I had one.
It's a little trough with 2 wheels.
Yeah.
Put it on the floor, set the sheet on it. One hand, you can just roll it across the shop.
I don't have so much a hard time moving the sheets around like that. Just lifting them, on the saw. But anyway, if you, if somebody's looking for a solution, look up the product Leg Up for your table saw. It's not that expensive, and it's well worth the money. Big fan. I should show it on my channel again. I showed it some years ago, but I should show it on the channel again.
He built a track system with a winch, and it had vacuum clamps. And you just put them on the sheet, and he just wheel them right over and set them down. I said, Jesus, that's lazy.
Yep. That's the way to do it.
Yeah. Used to like 3/4, now I like 1/2 inch. Starting to think 1/8 would be better.
Yeah. I'm just to the point where I'm almost going to get the lumberyard to cut up my sheets.
Do you get
cut those in half?
the sheet stock that's Baltic birch? We use it for cabinet drawers and stuff.
It's nice stuff.
5x5s.
5x5s, yeah.
The wingspan's barely long enough to grab them.
Oh, I know. That's hard to grab.
Yeah. Hard to get in the truck too. You can't.
Yeah, exactly. It's a European size or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've got a couple of sheets of that in my shop. I don't use it very often. Though. It's too much money. I had a buddy during COVID when lumber went way up. He got a smoking deal on a whole bunch of Baltic birch. It was 5/8 Baltic birch.
Yeah.
And so he was building 2-way pallets out of Baltic birch. He's got all of these Baltic birch pallets now.
A lot of the Baltic birch, they do use exterior glue in, versus a lot of the other birches, it's just whatever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if I'd have been able to make that out of Baltic birch. It'd make me cry.
Yeah, it's been almost 3 hours.
Almost 3 hours.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and end the chat. Y'all just hang on where you at. Appreciate everybody coming in on the chat today.
Thanks, Joey.
And in the studio.
Joey.
Appreciate it, Joey. Another good one.
All right. We'll see y'all over there in a minute.